The recurring dream loop. You wake up convinced it's over, the nightmare that clung to your mind, the impossible sequence of events that blurred the edge between terror and wonder. You shake off the dream, laughing nervously at how real it felt. The clock reads 6:47. Your phone vibrates, an unread message. Outside, the neighbor's dog barks. You remember that weird pattern on the wall, the flicker in the hallway light, the sour taste of dread in your mouth. But you're awake now. This is real. Dreams end. Reality holds. And yet, as the hours slide by, an unease worms its way back into your thoughts. You reach for your mug. Pause. Didn't you just do this? The radio mutters the same static-laced tune. The same van drives past the window at the same impossible moment. The neighbor's dog barks, not once, but with the same tempo, the same urgency, as if the world itself is replaying. There's a text from a number you don't remember saving. The words. They echo the fragment of last night's dream, something you can't quite name, but can't ignore. A chill runs through you. What if you never really woke up? What if the dream folded itself so precisely around your life that you've become trapped inside its loops, unable to tell waking from sleeping? This is the recurring dream loop, the eerie phenomenon where reality and dreams start to merge, not in some poetic metaphor, but in the tangible sensation that the script of your day is being recycled, rerun, echoed from somewhere deeper than memory. It isn't déjà vu, that fleeting sense of repetition that vanishes with a blink. It's more like the world has become a stage play where the actors, your friends, your family, even you, are forced to repeat their lines. Sometimes you wonder, is there a crack in reality? Has something fundamental broken beneath the surface? Psychologists and neuroscientists have long debated the boundary between dream and waking. Most would tell you that dreams are simply the mind's way of sorting through chaos, memory, and desire. They're supposed to evaporate with the dawn, leaving only scattered images behind. But sometimes, the dream refuses to fade. Sometimes, it brands your consciousness, colors your perception, and seeps into the flow of your day like a phantom limb, felt, but unseen. Picture this. You dream that you're in a room you've never visited. A blue lamp flickering, a clock stuck at 4:13, a stranger humming a song you've never heard. In the dream, you feel lost, but also electrified, as if the air itself is alive. Then you wake, heart pounding, relieved it's over. But that afternoon, you find yourself in an unfamiliar cafe. A blue lamp glows in the corner. The wall clock is broken at 4:13. Someone at the next table is humming the tune from your dream. You freeze because this isn't just coincidence. It's the feeling that reality is plagiarizing your dream, stitching its logic into the bones of your day. Or maybe it's subtler. You keep noticing strange repetitions. A certain phrase someone says, an outfit someone wears, a fragment of a conversation. You try to brush it off as coincidence, but each time it happens, the feeling deepens. Reality becomes porous, unstable. You wonder, am I awake, or am I just dreaming that I woke up? Maybe the real world is somewhere else, and this is just a clever facsimile, a pocket of recycled experience. The recurring dream loop can feel like a private haunting. You don't tell anyone at first. Who would believe you? But then you start searching, and you find thousands of people reporting the same thing. Dreams that leak into reality, reality that echoes the patterns of dreams, days that seem to replay themselves with minor, unsettling changes. It's as if there's a flaw in the simulation, a rip in the code, and you are the only one who can see the repeating lines. There's a story of a man who dreamed he was trapped in an endless hotel corridor. Every door he opened led back to the same hallway, no matter how far he walked or how many times he turned around. When he finally woke, he felt relief. Until, on his way to work, he noticed the sequence of streetlights was the same as in his dream. The same flicker, the same shadows, the same sensation of being watched. For days, every path he took curved back on itself. Conversations felt rehearsed. Outcomes were inevitable. He began to panic, convinced he was still inside the dream, that waking up was just another layer. This experience isn't limited to individuals. Entire cultures have myths about the repeating world, the wheel of time, the eternal return, the myth of déjà rev. Some philosophers have argued that consciousness itself is a loop, a feedback system replaying sensations and memories until we mistake them for reality. Maybe, in these moments, we glimpse the machinery behind the curtain. Maybe the dream loop is not a glitch, but a clue. Scientists have tried to explain this. One theory is that when you experience powerful dreams, your brain imprints certain emotional tags on waking life. When you encounter similar cues, a smell, a sound, a pattern of light, your brain lights up the same neural pathways, creating a sense of recurrence. But this explanation feels hollow when the repetitions go far beyond simple triggers. When you find objects, people, or messages exactly as they appeared in your dreams, logic starts to break down. Is your mind creating reality, or is reality reaching in to shape your mind? Some say it's a side effect of trauma or stress, a mind stuck in replay mode, unable to break free from its own scripts. But there are moments when the loop feels less like a prison and more like a message, a warning, or perhaps a key. What if these loops are invitations to notice something you've missed, to pay attention to the invisible currents that shape your days? Imagine a woman haunted by a dream where she fails to catch a train over and over. Each time she wakes sweating, anxious, convinced she's lost something vital. Then, one day, she's running late to work. She sees the train doors begin to close, feels the same panic, and remembers the dream. This time, she stops, catches her breath, and waits for the next train. The loop breaks. The day unfolds in a new direction. She realizes later that breaking the pattern wasn't just about missing a train. It was about refusing to let fear script her life. But sometimes, the loop doesn't end. Sometimes, it persists for days, weeks, or longer. You wake, convinced you've escaped, only to find the same sequence waiting for you. You try to disrupt it, change your routine, take a different road, speak words you've never spoken. Yet, reality finds a way to catch up, weaving the dream back in. In these moments, you begin to wonder if you're the author or just the actor, if your choices matter at all. And what about those moments when the loop is benevolent? When the dream offers a kindness, a sign, a warning, a reunion with someone lost? For some, the recurring dream loop is a way of being guided, nudged toward meaning, protected from harm. There are stories of people who dreamed of danger, changed their behavior, and narrowly escaped a disaster. Stories of cryptic messages repeated until the dreamer finally understands. Sometimes, the loop is the only thing that saves us from ourselves. Yet for most, the recurring dream loop is a reminder of how fragile the boundary is between worlds. We think of ourselves as awake, rational, anchored. But a single night's dream can unravel that certainty, folding its strange logic into the fabric of our lives. The next time you feel the shiver of repetition, the whisper of déjà rev, the uncanny echo of a dream you can't shake, ask yourself, is this a warning, a glitch, or a gift? Is the loop a prison or a door? Because maybe, just maybe, the loop is not meant to be broken. Maybe it's a clue that reality is deeper, stranger, and more recursive than we can imagine. That somewhere, beneath the layers of sleep and waking, a part of you is still dreaming, still searching for the moment when the loop finally lets go, and you wake up, truly awake for the very first time. The mirror memory effect. You wake one morning with the residue of a dream clinging to you, not as an image or a story, but as a sense, a powerful aching familiarity. In your mind's eye, you see a sunlit corridor, hear the echo of distant laughter, feel the soft graze of someone's hand on your shoulder. It feels so specific, so real, that you can almost remember who you were in that dream and what that place meant to you. But as you reach for details, they evaporate, leaving only the echo of a feeling you can't place, a nostalgia with no anchor, a memory with no origin. This is the mirror memory effect, the strange phenomenon where your dreams plant memories in your mind that feel as if they belong to another life, another timeline, or someone else entirely. These memories slip beneath the surface of your waking life, coloring the way you see certain faces, shaping the way you trust certain strangers, or haunting you with longing for places you have never been. You might meet someone for the first time and feel a shock of recognition, as if some part of you already knows them. You walk down an unfamiliar street and feel your heart leap, certain you have walked this way before, but no diary, no photo, no story from your past can explain it. These mirror memories are different from the normal fog of dreams. Most dreams fade quickly, reduced to fragments that crumble by breakfast. But the memories seeded by the mirror memory effect linger, sometimes for years, sometimes forever. They shape the architecture of your inner world, building hidden rooms you only discover by accident. And each time you stumble into one, you feel a tremor of déjà vu, an electric shiver that whispers, "You have been here. You have loved this. You have lost this before." Consider the feeling of meeting a friend in a dream, someone who feels closer to you than your closest companions in waking life. You laugh together, cry together, share secrets so private and raw that you wake up with tears on your pillow. The bond feels ancient, irreplaceable, and yet, when you wake, you realize you have never met this person before. But their face is clear, their voice still echoing in your mind. All day their memory follows you, shaping your mood, changing the flavor of your solitude. Sometimes you even catch yourself missing them, wishing you could call them, not fully understanding that they only exist inside the architecture of your dream-forged memory. Or take the recurring dream of a house you return to again and again over the years. You know every inch of it. The creak of the stairs, the way the late afternoon light pools in the living room, the smell of rain against the old wooden porch. You know where to find the hidden key, where the dog curls up to sleep, where your favorite book is tucked away on a shelf. In the dream, you move with absolute confidence. This is your home, your sanctuary. And then you wake, and the house is gone. But the memory remains, richer and more detailed than most real places you've visited. The nostalgia is sharp, bittersweet. You catch yourself searching for that house in the world, half expecting to find it one day and unlock a door that only your dreaming mind can enter. What are these memories, really? Science tells us dreams are the mind's way of processing and organizing experience, weaving together fragments of thought, emotion, and sensation into strange stories. But the mirror memory effect suggests something deeper, something almost mystical. What if dreams aren't just recycling the past, but inventing new memories entirely? Memories that are just as real to the brain as anything you've actually lived. What if your mind can create a history for you that never happened, but which shapes you as surely as the moments you actually survived? Sometimes, these mirror memories bring comfort, a reminder that you have known joy, love, or adventure, even if only in another reality. Other times, they can be profoundly unsettling, as when you are haunted by the memory of a loss that never occurred, or carry guilt for a mistake you never made. They become emotional artifacts, buried beneath the rational layers of your waking mind, surfacing in moments of quiet or crisis, reshaping the story you tell yourself about who you are. There are people who spend years searching for the origin of these memories. They travel to distant countries, convinced they will recognize a street corner or a face in a crowd. They write letters to strangers whose names came to them in a dream, hoping for some impossible connection. Some even fall in love with dream people, feeling a loyalty that overshadows their waking relationships. The yearning for meaning is real, the ache for lost worlds a powerful force. And then, sometimes, the world answers back. You stumble across a painting in a gallery that depicts the exact landscape from your recurring dream. You hear a melody on the radio and know with absolute certainty what note will come next, though you have never heard the song before. You meet a stranger and both of you feel it. Some ineffable recognition, some impossible overlap between lives. Are these mere coincidences, artifacts of a mind desperate for connection? Or are they evidence of something stranger? That the boundaries between memory and invention, between dream and waking, are thinner than we imagine? Maybe your mind is not a closed system, but a hall of mirrors, reflecting not just your lived experiences, but the infinite possibilities of who you could have been. Maybe each night as you sleep, your mind sends out a signal, searching for alternate versions of yourself in other realities, and brings back souvenirs, a face, a voice, a street, a sorrow. You carry these mirror memories with you, half blind, half haunted, forever searching for their source. They are the ghosts of lives unlived, the fingerprints of your mind's secret histories. And as you move through your waking world, you learn to live with the mystery that some part of you remembers things you never did, loved people you never met, lost things you never had. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the richness of being alive is not just in what you have actually known, but in the endless corridors of memory that your dreaming self builds each night. Maybe your life is not a single story, but a tapestry woven from waking and dreaming, past and future, real and imagined. a hall of mirrors that reflects you, again and again, in infinite and beautiful ways. The lucid dissolve paradox. You became aware you were dreaming. Maybe it started the way it always does, a moment of strangeness, a door that shouldn't be there, a feeling in your bones that the laws of gravity have been quietly rewritten. You realize, mid-dream, that something is off. The colors are too sharp, the air is too thick, the faces around you keep sliding out of focus. And then, in an instant of sharp electric clarity, you know you're inside a dream. Most people wake up soon after. The lucidity is supposed to be a bridge, a brief passage between unreality and the solid world of daylight. But not for you. Because this time, the awareness never ended. That impossible moment of knowing, that surreal weightlessness, never quite left. You woke up, but the dream didn't dissolve. You're still carrying it, half draped over your shoulders like a transparent cloak. It lingers. It warps the light in your mind. It whispers that the waking world is only another layer, another mask. And now you live in this paradox, fully conscious yet still haunted by the residue of the dream. You watch yourself move through daily life, but something feels doubled. Everything is slightly askew. The air has the same thick, heavy density as the dream. Your own thoughts echo, as if bouncing off unseen walls. Sometimes you wonder, am I still dreaming? Did I ever actually wake up? Or have I slipped into a corridor between worlds, a lucid dissolve that never resolves? This paradox isn't just a trick of the mind. It's a real measurable fracture in the sense of self, the sense of place. Psychology calls it derealization or depersonalization, a sudden, jarring feeling that the world isn't quite real, that you yourself are only half present. But lived from the inside, it's stranger than any diagnosis. You remember the dream perfectly, the logic that made sense at the time, the landscapes that folded and unfolded at your will. And now, in waking life, you sometimes find yourself testing reality, trying to change the color of a wall with your thoughts, expecting gravity to loosen its grip. Sometimes you catch yourself staring at your own hands, waiting for them to blur or multiply, as they did in the dream. You walk through your house and half expect to find impossible rooms. You look in the mirror and sense that your face might flicker, change, dissolve into another identity. Even the voices of your loved ones sound just a little too scripted, too familiar, as if reciting lines from a play you once performed in some other, softer universe. You are lucid, you are aware, but the awareness is a trap. You can never quite shake the feeling that this world is only a slightly more convincing illusion. Think of it as a door that opened, but then refused to close. Most people who achieve lucidity in a dream will either wake up or fall back into the trance. But you're stuck at the threshold, unable to cross fully into either world. The dream is not over, but neither is it fully real. And so, you move through days with the sensation that you are always halfway somewhere else. Imagine this. You're at work, sitting in a meeting, and suddenly the room shivers. The light through the blinds fractures, the voice of your boss slows to a crawl. You remember, viscerally, the sensation of flying you had in last night's dream. For a moment, you're convinced you could float to the ceiling if you only let go. Your rational mind asserts itself. No, you're awake. This is real. But the certainty wavers. You watch the world the way you'd watch a movie whose ending you already know. You become hyper-aware of every detail, the way people's mouths move, the sound of your own breathing. Everything feels both closer and impossibly far away. You are the dreamer who never woke up. This is the lucid dissolve paradox. The veil never lifts, the line never resolves. The more aware you become, the less anchored you feel. Awareness was supposed to be freedom, but it's turned to glass, trapping you in a terrarium of endless reflection. You try to ground yourself. You splash cold water on your face, touch the fabric of your clothes, run your hands over the grain of the table, but the texture is off. The coldness feels artificial, the surface of the world too smooth, too seamless. You suspect, in the back of your mind, that all of this is still a projection, that you might wake up again at any moment. Back in bed, sweat-soaked, heart racing, relieved to return to a reality you trust. But what if that never happens? What if this is the new baseline, the paradox of being permanently lucid but never truly awake? You start to question everything you once took for granted. The old rules of cause and effect, of time and sequence, feel fragile. You start to see signs and symbols everywhere, as if the universe is leaving you breadcrumbs to find your way out. Sometimes you wonder if you're the only one who feels this. You search online, find message boards full of strangers describing the same strange sensation, lucid, awake, and yet lost in the echo of a dream that won't let go. Some people use words like simulation, matrix, reality glitch. Others talk about quantum consciousness, parallel worlds, a universe that runs on observation. But at the heart of it, the feeling is always the same. You are untethered. You're the astronaut who can't return to Earth, the actor who can't leave the stage, the dreamer who can't forget the dream. This paradox can be terrifying. There are days when it feels like you're losing your grip on reality, that you might slip through the cracks for good. There are nights when sleep feels risky, as if you might fall deeper into layers you'll never climb out of. But it can also be beautiful. There's a sense of mystery, of living in a world where anything is possible. The rules are loose, the borders are soft. You find wonder in small details, a shadow moving where it shouldn't, a coincidence that feels like fate. You begin to realize that certainty was always an illusion, that reality was always more fluid than you believed. The lucid dissolve paradox asks you to live with ambiguity, to embrace the idea that awareness is not always an escape, but sometimes a trap. That knowing you are dreaming doesn't always let you wake up. It can deepen the maze, make every corridor infinite. You learn to carry the dream gently, to honor the strangeness without panicking. You learn to ground yourself in sensation, in the small rituals of life, the taste of tea, the sound of rain, the feeling of breath. You learn to accept that maybe there is no final awakening, no definitive return. And over time, you start to see the gift inside the curse. You see how the dream world and the waking world bleed into each other, how the boundaries are always shifting, how reality is more complex and more astonishing than you ever allowed yourself to believe. You realize that everyone, in some way, is living inside a story, a projection, a lucid dissolve that never quite resolves. And you, having traveled this strange path, are more awake, more alive, more attuned to the mystery than you ever were before. You are lucid, yes. You are also dreaming. And somewhere in the endless dissolve between those two truths, you are learning how to live. The sleepwalking reality trap. You wake up, or so you think. The light presses against your eyelids, thin and watery, pouring through the window in a way that feels both familiar and just slightly wrong. You reach for your phone, check the time, 5:37 a.m., but the digits seem to float for a second, untethered, bending at the edges as if the screen were made of liquid. You blink, shake your head. The feeling lingers. It's just sleep inertia, you tell yourself, just the residue of dreams. But as you move through the room, each step is heavy, muffled. The air feels syrupy. Sounds are slow, colors too saturated or too dull. You stare at the clock on the wall. The hands are ticking, but you swear you see a double image, one second hand chasing the other, never quite catching up. You convince yourself, this is waking, this is real. But deep in your gut, something resists. It's a sensation as old as childhood. Those mornings after a fever, when the world was sticky and off balance, when your toys looked like imposters and your own hands felt borrowed. Now, as an adult, you brush off that primal suspicion. Yet, every so often, reality itself blinks, as if the dream never truly ended, and you are still trapped inside a deeper sleep. The sleepwalking reality trap is not just a phenomenon, it's a crisis of perception, a boundary where waking life and dream bleed together until you question if the boundary exists at all. It's more common than we admit, but most people live their entire lives without ever stopping to look directly at it. Have you ever woken up, begun your morning routine, eaten breakfast, and then suddenly found yourself in bed, realizing the entire sequence was just a dream? That's the obvious version. But the subtler, more sinister trap is when you wake up, go about your day, and the glitches follow you into consciousness. You might see it in the way the numbers on your microwave blur and reform as you glance at them, or how, for a split second, the hallway in your home looks longer or shorter than it should. Maybe the colors outside your window are too vivid, almost as if someone turned the saturation up past the limits of the physical world. You feel an uneasy déjà vu, like you've done this before, seen this before. but the details keep rearranging themselves just out of reach, and you wonder, am I really awake? Psychologists call this derealization, a state where reality seems unreal, dreamlike, or distant. But the sleepwalking reality trap is not merely a clinical symptom. It's an existential riddle, a doorway to the possibility that your mind never truly escapes the logic of dreams, even as your body wakes and moves and speaks. In dreams, you rarely realize you're dreaming. Only when you wake do you see how strange it was. But what if the waking world can be just as slippery? What if you're still inside some nested reality, peering out through layers of fog, unable to know for sure if you've left the maze? This trap can tighten at random moments. You walk through a familiar neighborhood. The sky is a shade you can't quite name, somewhere between blue and violet. The trees flicker in the wind, but their leaves seem to change shape, their shadows swirling in slow-motion spirals on the pavement. A dog barks in the distance, but the sound stretches, bending around corners, echoing in a way that makes you question whether you heard it at all. The faces of people you pass feel oddly generic, as if painted on, their eyes sliding past you without ever really seeing. For an instant, you feel like a background character in someone else's dream. Some people experience this as a side effect of insomnia, anxiety, or a restless mind. For others, it's a spontaneous glitch, an unexplainable intrusion that can last seconds or hours. You look at your own hands, turn them over in the light, searching for reassurance. The ridges of your fingerprints, the scars and freckles, they anchor you. But the certainty slips away as quickly as it arrived. Maybe the world is just a set, propped up for your benefit, dissolving at the edges when you turn away. Maybe you are both the dreamer and the dreamed, wandering through a story that's being written in real time by a mind you can never fully meet. There are stories of people lost in this trap for days, unable to tell if they are awake or still sleeping. One man recalled leaving his house, driving to work, only to see his co-workers' faces morph and twist, their mouths moving out of sync with their words. The walls pulsed with patterns that weren't there, and time unraveled. Minutes stretching, compressing, skipping whole hours. He tried to snap himself out of it, splashing water on his face, pinching his arm, but nothing worked. Only after waking up, again, in his own bed, did he realize the entire day was a labyrinth of nested dreams. But what truly haunted him was this. Even after waking up, the sense of unreality remained, as if the world had been contaminated by the logic of dreams. There is a horror to this experience, but also a strange beauty. In dreams, impossible things are accepted without question. Gravity reverses, logic melts, and yet you adapt seamlessly. What if your mind, half awake, brings some of that adaptability into waking life, filtering and reshaping the world? Maybe this is why so many creative breakthroughs, songs, poems, inventions, come from the edge of sleep, where the walls are thin and the impossible feels only a step away. But there's a cost. If you linger too long in that borderland, the world can lose its weight, its bite, its certainty. You begin to suspect that everything is just a little too convenient, a little too fragile, like a backdrop painted on mist. Some try to snap out of it by seeking out pain or novelty. Ice water on the wrists, spicy food on the tongue, sprinting down the street at midnight. These things can jolt you back for a while, but the relief is temporary. The mind keeps slipping, chasing itself in circles. And always, at the back of your thoughts, there is a question. If I can't trust this, my own perceptions, what can I trust? The sleepwalking reality. Trap is a cousin of the lucid dream, but with none of the agency. In a lucid dream, you realize you're dreaming and gain some control. Here, you realize something is off, but you're powerless to fix it. Instead, you become a witness to your own uncertainty, forever testing the walls of your world for cracks, forever poking the seams, hoping for proof that this is real, or proof that it's not. Neither comes. Think about the times you've woken from a nightmare, heart pounding, sweat on your skin, only to find that the terror lingers in your bones for hours after. Or those rare mornings when you wake from a dream of flight, a dream of impossible joy, and the loss of that world aches like grief. What if waking itself is just a transition from one story to another, and the border is not as clear as we like to think? You may notice these glitches more when you're stressed, sleep-deprived, or on the edge of a major change. The mind becomes more porous, more willing to blur the lines. But the truth is, the boundary between dreaming and waking has always been thin. Neuroscience tells us that the same circuits fire in both states. The same areas light up in REM sleep and during certain moments of daydream or creative reverie. Consciousness itself is not a light switch, but a dimmer, sliding smoothly from one extreme to another, never fully clicking into certainty. The next time you catch a shadow bending the wrong way, or a familiar face looking strange, or a clock melting at the corner of your vision, pause. Ask yourself, what if this is the dream I never woke from? What if the true nature of reality is always a little bit unstable, a little bit stranger than you'd like to admit? What if you're sleepwalking right now, searching for a certainty that no one ever truly finds? Maybe there's no waking up, not fully. Maybe the only real difference is how willing you are to notice the seams, to accept the warping of clocks and the shifting of colors, to lean into the mystery instead of fleeing from it. In the end, the sleepwalking reality trap is not just a malfunction, it's a message. It's an invitation to see the world with new eyes, knowing that every moment, every perception, every ordinary detail could be the dream within the dream, waiting for you to wake up. Or maybe, just maybe, to never wake up at all. The forgotten story. Echo. There's a strange silence that follows a forgotten dream. A kind of ghostly hush that settles over your waking hours. You open your eyes, sunlight crawling across the ceiling, and feel an emotion pulsing inside you, sweet, bruised, or raw. But when you reach for the story behind it, the details scatter, fleeing deeper into the fog of your mind. You lie there, still for a moment, searching for the edges of a narrative you know you lived through just moments ago. Names, faces, places, they're all gone, as if stolen by invisible hands. Yet something remains. You feel it in your chest. A sadness without a scene, joy without an origin, dread with no disaster to blame. It's as if your mind remembers without remembering. The story has vanished, but the emotional echo haunts you all day. It's not just you. This is one of the great riddles of the dreaming mind. Every night, as your body drifts into sleep, your brain spins wild, intricate tales, stories as vivid as waking life, sometimes more so. You live entire lifetimes in the space of a few hours. You fall in love with strangers whose faces you've never seen before and will never see again. You fight wars in cities that don't exist, grieve losses you'll never be able to name, feel terror or awe or laughter more real than anything daylight ever offers. And then, as morning cracks open the world, these stories dissolve. Sometimes, all you're left with is a single moment, an image, a corridor flooded with blue light, a voice calling your name from the end of a tunnel, a flash of impossible color, or the knowledge that something extraordinary happened. Something you can't explain. But the emotion clings. Maybe you wake up haunted by longing, and you can't shake it, no matter how many coffees you drink, or how much news you scroll through. Maybe there's a sense of relief so strong it makes you want to cry, but you don't know what you've escaped. Maybe you spend the whole day feeling slightly guilty, or weirdly brave, or tender toward everyone you meet, as if you're acting out a role you've already played. Only the script is gone. This is the forgotten story echo, the aftermath of dreams that have vanished, but whose emotional residue shapes the shape of your day. Science tries to explain this. The hippocampus, the brain's librarian, doesn't always store dreams the way it stores daytime events. The chemicals that lay down lasting memories are in short supply during REM sleep. So, even as your mind is weaving the wildest narratives, those stories aren't getting saved in the right drawer. When you wake, the filing system glitches. The words, the images, the plot points, all fall through your fingers like sand. But emotion is different. The amygdala, the ancient seat of feeling, fires at full strength in dreams. Fear, love, grief, wonder. All these leave deeper grooves. They outlast the details, floating up into consciousness as a feeling that just won't go away, even after the story has crumbled. Maybe this is why some dreams haunt us. You meet a version of yourself who is braver, or lonelier, or wiser than the one you recognize. You chase someone you love through a shifting landscape, but every time you get close, the scenery changes, the goal moves. You try to shout a warning, but your voice won't work. And when you wake, the dream is gone. But the urgency, the ache, the strange hope, they stick to you like static. All day you feel yourself searching for something half-remembered, a story that made you feel more alive than anything else, but whose shape you can't recall. Think about those days when you wake with your heart pounding. You scramble to remember the nightmare, a house burning, a fall from a bridge, someone turning away in the dark, but the plot disintegrates before you can write it down. All that remains is fear, a prickling sense that something is not quite right. Or maybe you wake with a quiet happiness blooming inside, a secret warmth, and the only thing you remember is a smile, a gesture, a feeling that you were loved. You spend the day searching for the source, but it's already out of reach. This is not memory. Not exactly. It's something deeper, an emotional ghost story, a resonance between worlds. Sometimes, the forgotten story echo feels like a warning. You move through your day feeling uneasy, as if you've missed something important. You wonder, was it just a dream? Or was my mind trying to tell me something? Psychologists call this dream residue, the leftover emotion from the previous night that seeps into your waking mind. But it's more than a residue. It can shape your choices, change your mood, even alter the way you see yourself and others. Maybe you're more patient with a stranger because, in the vanished dream, you lost someone precious. Maybe you feel reckless, taking risks you normally wouldn't, because some forgotten narrative showed you the edge of the world and you survived. The story is gone, but the echo makes you act as if you remember. And sometimes, this echo lasts for years. There are moments, random afternoons, silent car rides, the smell of rain on concrete, when a forgotten dream stirs at the edge of consciousness. You get a flash of déjà vu, an overwhelming nostalgia for a life you never lived. You try to trace it back, but there's nothing there. Just the emotion, like a key with no lock. A song whose melody you almost recall. For some, these echoes are painful. You wake up grieving for someone you never met, missing a place that doesn't exist. For others, it's a source of secret strength, a hidden memory of triumph, courage, or love that makes no sense in the daylight, but gives you hope anyway. It's easy to dismiss this as random brain static, the leftover noise of neural circuits firing in the night. But what if these forgotten stories are more than that? What if, somewhere deep inside, your mind is telling you something it can't say with words, reminding you of the vastness of your own imagination, the depth of your fears and desires, the strange beauty of being alive? What if the echo of a forgotten dream is a kind of wisdom, silent, wordless, but real? Maybe you're more than just your waking self. Maybe you're a collection of all the stories you've ever dreamed, even the ones you can't remember. Maybe the emotional weather of your life is shaped as much by lost narratives as by remembered ones. There's a certain humility in this. It means you don't control your whole story. Some part of you is always drifting, wandering the wild lands of dream, returning each morning with a suitcase full of feelings and only the faintest traces of a map. You never know what you'll bring back: regret, longing, courage, or sorrow. You are changed by journeys you don't recall, and yet, these changes are real. They matter. They are part of who you are. If you pay attention, you can sometimes catch the echo as it fades. The next time you wake with an unplaceable emotion, don't push it away. Sit with it. Let it tell you what it can, even if the words never come. Maybe draw, or write, or just breathe and listen. Sometimes, in the quiet, you'll find a piece of the lost story, a color, a feeling, a glimpse of the world your mind built and left behind. And in that moment, you'll know. The dream is not truly gone. Its echo lives in you, shaping the way you feel, the way you love, the way you move through the waking world. Even when the story has vanished, the feeling lingers, subtle but persistent, the echo of a forgotten dream that still shapes the outline of your soul. The identity drift effect. You wake in the half-light, breathless, carrying the echo of a life that isn't yours. In your dream, you were a stranger, a different face in the mirror, another name whispered in the dark, a history that flowed through you as easily as your own blood. You moved through rooms you've never seen, loved people you've never met, felt the pain and longing of someone else's story. And now, back in your own bed, you lie there, stunned by the force of it, unable to shake the feeling that you've brought something back with you. Not just a memory, but a fragment of another self, like a ghost has taken root in your mind. You try to brush it off. After all, dreams are supposed to be harmless, a playground for the subconscious, a random shuffle of images and feelings. But as you go about your day, odd thoughts keep surfacing. preferences that aren't yours, flashes of anger, sorrow, or tenderness that feel foreign, like echoes of a person you've never been. You order a coffee you don't even like, wear clothes that feel wrong on your skin, say things you don't remember thinking. It's subtle at first, but soon it's as if the boundaries of your identity are blurring, smudged by something you can't name. You ask yourself, who am I really? Am I just the sum of my memories, my habits, my desires? Or is my selfhood more fragile than I thought, a shifting mask shaped by whatever roles I've inhabited, even in dreams? The identity drift effect isn't just some poetic phrase. It's a phenomenon as real and unsettling as anything that happens in the daylight. It's the strange permeability of the mind, the way dreams can leak into waking life and redraw the borders of the self. Imagine a woman who, night after night, dreams she is a painter living in a city by the sea. In her waking life, she's never picked up a brush, but after weeks of these dreams, she finds herself sketching on napkins, drawn to colors and forms she's never noticed before. She starts thinking in images instead of words, and when she closes her eyes, she can almost feel the salt air, the weight of the brush in her hand. Her friends say she's changed. She laughs differently, carries herself with an unfamiliar confidence. The dream identity has left fingerprints on her soul, or a man who dreams he's a father to a daughter who doesn't exist. The love he feels in those dreams is so vivid, so overwhelming, that he wakes up in tears. For days after, he moves through life with a strange tenderness, an ache for someone he's never known. He finds himself more patient with strangers, more protective of his friends, haunted by a sense of loss for a relationship that never happened. The dream has seeded something real in him, a shift in the way he loves, the way he sees the world. Science has tried to map the terrain of the dreaming mind, but even the experts admit there are mysteries they can't explain. Some neuroscientists suggest that when we dream, we temporarily inhabit alternate versions of ourselves, avatars built from scraps of memory, desire, and imagination. These identities are vivid, coherent, and sometimes more emotionally real than the ones we live by day. And when we wake, we don't always leave them behind. They trail after us, casting long shadows over our thoughts and choices. The identity drift effect can be disturbing. You begin to question the stability of your own mind, to wonder if you're really in control. Some mornings you feel as if you've borrowed emotions from a stranger, like your body is haunted by echoes from another life. You try to anchor yourself, recite your name, your story, your routines, but there's always a flicker of doubt, a slippage at the edge of certainty. The more you try to define yourself, the more you feel yourself unraveling, dissolving into something plural, unstable. Yet, there's something strangely beautiful in this drift. If your identity can be shaped by dreams, maybe it's more flexible, more expansive than you ever imagined. Maybe you are not a single self, but a constellation, a collage of lives lived, dreamed, or imagined. Each night, you dissolve and reform, learning the shape of other possibilities. You become the sum of every story you've carried, every face you've worn, every heartbeat you've borrowed from the dark. Some people fear this fluidity, clinging to a rigid sense of who they are, but others lean into it, seeing the drift as a gift, a chance to change, to grow, to experience empathy from the inside out. They wake from dreams not as a fixed point, but as a river, always moving, always changed by the journey. They realize that the self is not a fortress, but a field, open, porous, alive with memory and possibility. So the next time you wake with the feeling that you are someone else, don't fight it. Let the drift move through you. Let it soften the boundaries of who you think you are. Because in the end, maybe that's the real miracle of dreaming, not escape, but expansion, not forgetting, but becoming. In dreams, you are everyone. In waking, you are more than you know. The unfinished dream hunger. You wake with your heart pounding, the taste of anticipation sharp in your mouth. A story was unfolding, rich, wild, impossible. Maybe you were racing through endless corridors, searching for someone you loved. Maybe you were on the verge of finding a long-lost truth, or about to leap off the edge of an impossible world, or confess a secret that would change everything. But then, just as the answer arrived, just as the hand reached for yours, just as the door swung open, the world snapped away. The dream dissolved, and you were back in your room, clutching the edges of the night as if you could pull yourself back through. But the story never comes back the same. It lingers just out of reach. A melody you can almost hum. A sentence you can almost finish. A hunger that gnaws at you all day. Your mind scrambles to make sense of the fragments, searching for clues, connecting dots that never belonged together, building new scenes out of thin air. You walk through the day half hypnotized, haunted by the need for resolution, longing for an ending you can never quite claim. This is the unfinished dream hunger, a restless ache that shadows you through waking life. It is the itch behind your eyes, the question hanging in your chest, the subtle compulsion to return to a world that doesn't exist. You try to let it go. You remind yourself it was only a dream, just an illusion, just neurons firing in the night. But the mind doesn't care. It wants completion, wants answers, wants the symmetry of a finished tale, and so it weaves endlessly, stitching new scenes into reality, blending fantasy with memory, shaping your days with the phantom logic of a night that never ended. You notice it first in quiet moments. You're washing dishes and your hands pause above the water, tracing invisible shapes. In your mind, the dream picks up again, just for a heartbeat. The face you almost recognize turns toward you, lips about to speak the name you've been waiting for. But it flickers and dies before it can finish. You look at yourself in the mirror and see the question reflected back, dark and hungry, as if some secret part of you is still running through those corridors, searching for the scene that never played. This hunger is older than you, older than language, older than dreams themselves. It is the same ache that pulls you to the end of a novel, that keeps you awake through the last minutes of a movie, that makes you demand closure from the people who leave you without warning. Your mind is built for story, for beginnings, middles, and endings. When the cycle is broken, something inside you stirs, a raw, animal need to finish what was started. And so, you invent. You create endings in the shower, on the commute, staring at the ceiling in the dead hours of the night. You replay the fragments of the dream over and over, each time adding a new twist, a new possibility, a new hope. Sometimes you imagine a happy reunion, a resolution that soothes the ache. Sometimes you conjure tragedy, pain, or mystery, just to feel the shape of a conclusion, any conclusion. You try to make peace with the unfinishedness, but peace slips away, replaced by the relentless urge to resolve. It can feel like madness. The people around you live in the present, moving through their days untouched, but you are split, half here, half lost in an invisible world, building stories out of silence, haunted by the ghosts of possibilities. Sometimes, if you're honest, you fall a little bit in love with that hunger. It gives your days a secret meaning, a purpose only you can sense. You wonder if everyone carries these invisible wounds. Stories cut short, chapters missing, doors left swinging open in the mind's dark hallways. And then there are the dreams that return. Night after night, the same unfinished tale replays, always stopping just before the climax, always withholding the answer, always dangling you over the edge. You wake up, night after night, chasing the ending, never catching it. The hunger deepens, turns inward, becomes part of who you are. You start to wonder if the unfinished dream is not a glitch, but a message, a mirror of all the unfinished business in your waking life. The apologies unsaid, the risks not taken, the questions never asked. The dream becomes a metaphor, an endless rehearsal for the endings you deny yourself when you are awake. You begin to see how this hunger shapes you. It drives you to finish things, to seek out closure in every part of your life. You become a collector of endings, a seeker of certainty in a world built on ambiguity. Sometimes it makes you reckless. You push too hard for answers, demand clarity where none exists, force stories to end before their time. Other times, it makes you gentle. You recognize the same ache in others, the longing for a resolution, the pain of an unfinished chapter. You learn to sit with it, to accept the ache as proof that you are alive, still searching, still open to the possibility of completion. But sometimes, in rare moments of grace, you realize that not every story needs to end. The hunger can be beautiful, a reminder that there are mysteries you will never solve, loves you will never outgrow, questions that will linger with you until the very end. The unfinished dream becomes a companion, not a curse, a doorway to wonder, an invitation to imagine, a promise that there is always more to come. You wake before resolution, but your mind keeps dreaming. You live in the unfinishedness, haunted and blessed by the hunger to complete what cannot be completed. And in that hunger, you find something unexpected. Not just pain, not just longing, but a fierce, radiant hope. The hope that every story, no matter how incomplete, is worth living. The hope that every ending is just a pause before the next beginning. The dream residue filter. You wake up and the world feels wrong. You can't say exactly why. Maybe the sun is too bright, or the air feels thick, heavy with a mood you can't name. You try to shake it off, splash water on your face, get dressed, go through your morning rituals. But something inside you is humming. Anger, sadness, a strange euphoria, some cocktail of emotion you know for a fact didn't begin in this world. It began in the dream. This is the dream residue filter. It's a veil you carry with you through the day, a thin film of unreality that coats every interaction, every conversation. Sometimes it's obvious, like when you wake from a nightmare, still trembling, and find yourself snapping at the people you love. But often, it's subtle, slow bleeding, insidious. You're not angry at anyone in particular, but the anger colors your words, your silences, your posture. Or maybe you wake up brimming with joy from a dream where everything went right, and you find yourself impossibly gentle with strangers, forgiving slights you'd usually hold on to. You can't trace the source, not really. All you know is the mood is real, the feelings are real, even if their origins are lost to sleep. You sit at the breakfast table. The person across from you, your partner, your child, your parent, says something harmless, but you react as if it's a threat or a joke or a declaration of love, depending on the weather in your chest. They look at you, puzzled, and you realize you've brought someone else's baggage to the conversation. Some shadow self, shaped by dream logic and midnight memory. In the back of your mind, a scene replays. An argument that never happened, a betrayal that never was. A reunion with someone you haven't seen in years. In the dream, it was everything. Here, it's invisible, but the mood remains. You carry it to work. You try to answer emails, join meetings, nod at jokes, but your sense of time is off, like you're out of sync by half a second. Your patience is thin, or your laughter comes too easily. You misread signals, hear sarcasm where there is none, see warmth where it's only politeness. It's as if every face you meet is wearing a mask you recognize from the night's dreamscape, each voice echoing with a memory you can't access in daylight. The filter isn't always negative. Some mornings, you wake with a sense of peace so profound it borders on sacred. The world feels gentler, people softer, problems less urgent. It's as if the residue of a blissful dream has coated your mind in armor. You glide through the day, unbothered by setbacks, quick to forgive, almost glowing. But even this can be unsettling. You know, deep down, that you didn't earn this peace. It arrived uninvited, a gift from some parallel life where things made sense, where you were loved perfectly or healed fully. The contrast between that dream world and this one can make reality feel even harsher when the filter eventually fades. Sometimes the mood is much darker. You wake heavy, grieving some loss you can't name. In the dream, someone you loved died, or you were abandoned, or you failed at something vital. You know it wasn't real, but your heart refuses to listen. You carry the grief into the shower, into your commute, into your first conversation of the day. The world looks grayer, sounds quieter. You can't summon the energy to pretend. People ask what's wrong, and you can't explain. How do you say, "I'm mourning a phantom"? How do you confess that your sadness doesn't belong to this world at all? Other times, you wake furious. Maybe in the dream, someone betrayed you, an old friend, a sibling, a partner. You know it didn't happen. You know you shouldn't be angry. But the feeling is so sharp, so fresh, that you snap at people for no reason, interpret every gesture as an attack. You spend the day defending yourself from invisible enemies, waging silent wars in your mind, unable to let go of a battle that never happened. This is the paradox of the dream residue filter. Dreams aren't just stories, they're emotional engines. The mind doesn't distinguish between feelings born in sleep and those born in daylight. The chemistry is the same. Cortisol for fear, dopamine for pleasure, adrenaline for conflict. Your brain reacts as if the dream events were real. And when you wake, the narrative dissolves, but the emotions stick. It's like waking from a rainstorm to find your clothes still soaked, the water refusing to evaporate. Science can map this phenomenon in the brain. Neuroimaging shows that during REM sleep, the amygdala, the center of emotion, is highly active, sometimes more so than during waking life. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and reality testing, is dampened. So you feel everything intensely without the usual barriers. When you wake up, the feelings linger. Your logical mind tries to dismiss them. It was just a dream. But your body refuses. The mood persists, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. You start to notice patterns. Certain people trigger certain moods, not because of anything they've done, but because they remind you of dream characters, friend or foe, lover or rival. Certain places, certain songs, even certain weather patterns become infused with dream residue, colored by emotions that have nothing to do with the present moment. You begin to realize how little control you have over your own perception, how easily reality can be painted by invisible hands. You might try to fight it. You tell yourself, "I'm awake now. None of that was real." But it doesn't matter. You can't logic your way out of a mood. You can only live through it, hope it fades, or learn to use it. Some people do just that. Artists, writers, musicians, they harness the dream residue, channel it into their work. A painter wakes from a nightmare and pours terror onto the canvas. A songwriter captures the bittersweet nostalgia of a lost love that never existed. The residue becomes fuel, the filter becomes a lens. But for most, it's a quieter struggle. You learn to move gently through the day, aware that your perception is always filtered, always colored by memories you didn't choose. You learn to question your reactions. Ask yourself, is this about now, or is this a ghost from last night's dream? Sometimes, just naming the filter can weaken its hold. Sometimes, you can use the residue to see the world differently, to find beauty in sadness, or caution in euphoria. And sometimes, the filter is so thick that you have to wait it out, trusting that it will eventually fade, that the world will return to its true colors. Or maybe you start to accept that there are no true colors, only layers, dream, memory, feeling, constantly shifting, blending, repainting your reality in endless, unpredictable combinations. You come to realize that everyone you meet is wearing their own filter, carrying their own residues, moods and memories from dreams they can't recall, stories that bleed from night into day. You learn to forgive, to move with compassion, to offer kindness even when you don't understand someone's anger or sorrow or joy, because you know how it feels to be colored by something you didn't choose, to walk through a world painted by a dream that refuses to leave. In the end, the dream residue filter is both a curse and a gift. It unsettles your sense of self, blurs the boundaries between worlds, but it also reminds you that reality is porous, that your mind is vaster than you know. It teaches you humility, empathy, creativity. It forces you to admit that you are not in control, not entirely. You are porous, permeable, always a little bit haunted by the lives you live in sleep. So you move forward, colored by dreams, changed by moods that aren't your own. You learn to live with the filter, to trust that, in time, the world will shift again, the colors will change, and you'll wake into a new day, shaped by dreams you haven't yet dreamed. The timeless sleep paradox. There are nights when you close your eyes, surrendering to sleep, only to awaken what feels like a heartbeat later. Your mind insists you've just slipped beneath the surface, yet the clock on your nightstand claims otherwise. Hours have vanished, dissolved into a single blink. You lie there, mind swimming, caught between disbelief and awe, as if you've stumbled through a wormhole in your own bedroom. But then there are other nights, nights where sleep is a labyrinth. Every second drawn out, every minute thick and endless. You toss, you turn, you stare at the ceiling as time dilates, expanding until it feels as though you've lived a lifetime in the dark. This is the timeless sleep paradox. It's a riddle the brain weaves for itself, sometimes compressing whole nights into a single breath, sometimes unraveling moments so slowly you wonder if the clock has forgotten how to move. The strangest part isn't what happens in sleep, but what lingers after. You carry this distorted sense of time back into waking life. You get out of bed, but your inner clock is fractured, unsure whether the day is beginning or ending, whether you're running late or still stuck in last night's dream. The echo of the paradox follows you like a shadow that stretches and shrinks at will. Imagine waking from a dream in which you've aged decades, watched friends disappear, watched cities crumble, felt the passage of years in your bones. You bolt upright, heart pounding, only to find it's still dawn. The time on the clock is the same as it was minutes before you drifted off. You try to shake it, but the weight of those dream years clings to you. Your body remembers every heartbreak, every celebration. Reality, for a moment, is forced to compete with the memory of an entire lifetime lived and lost in your head. Or flip the script. You fall asleep at midnight, and in what feels like mere seconds, your alarm blares. The night has evaporated. You're left with the sense that you've been robbed, that the world skipped forward without your consent. You drag yourself through the day, haunted by the suspicion that you missed something vital, that hours have been erased from your personal history. The timeless sleep paradox isn't limited to the realm of dreams. It seeps into waking hours, bending your sense of time in ways that logic alone can't explain. You glance at the clock at work, and 5 minutes feel like an eternity. Yet, when you're lost in conversation, laughter, or sorrow, hours vanish. Time becomes a substance you can't hold, stretching, snapping, slipping through your fingers, no matter how tightly you try to grasp it. Scientists might say this is the handiwork of the brain's temporal lobe, that dreams in certain mental states disrupt the usual calibration of your inner clock. But the experience is far more haunting than a simple neurological glitch. It's existential. It's disorienting. You start to question, if my perception of time is so easily warped, so fragile, what is real about the life I'm living? If I can feel the weight of years in the space of a nap, or lose hours in the blink of an eye, how do I know that the time I experience while awake isn't just another illusion? This paradox breeds a quiet anxiety. You begin to mistrust the passage of time altogether. Some mornings you feel as though you've aged overnight. Lines on your face seem deeper, memories sharper or more faded. Other mornings you wake as if no time has passed at all, as if you're caught in a loop, each day a carbon copy of the last, each dream stacking on top of the previous like thin sheets of glass. Children sense this most acutely. To a child, a summer afternoon can last forever, while the school year flickers by in a flash. In old age, time seems to accelerate. Months and years compress, life itself, a brief interlude between birth and oblivion. But in sleep, everyone returns to that primal uncertainty, that wild elasticity of time, where clocks lose their meaning and the only measure is memory. The timeless sleep paradox isn't a flaw in your brain. It's a secret door to the deeper nature of existence. It hints that time is not a river, steady and objective, but a strange shifting sea, sometimes deep, sometimes shallow, always unpredictable. When you awaken from a dream that lasted a century, or from a night that disappeared in a heartbeat, you carry that truth with you. The world feels just a little less solid, a little more mysterious. You find yourself haunted by the possibility that the life you remember, the calendar of birthdays, the accumulation of moments, might not be as fixed as you once believed. You wonder how many hours you've lost, how many you've gained, how many more will warp and slip and stretch before you finally sleep for the last time. And so, you move through your days with new eyes, attuned to every skipped second, every lingering hour, every impossible distortion, knowing that time in the end belongs not to the clock, but to the strange and dreaming mind that lives inside your skull. The overlapping reality syndrome. You wake up, but it doesn't feel like waking. Your eyes blink into morning and something is off, like you're sliding from one world into another, but the border is blurry, the passport control missing. Last night's dream is still pulsing behind your eyes. The texture of a hand you held, the rain against a window, a city whose streets you knew by heart even though you've never set foot there. For a moment, it's not just memory, it's reality, as tangible as the room around you. In these first minutes, your mind is split, hanging between two worlds, unable to swear allegiance to either. You remember laughing in a place that doesn't exist, grieving for people you've never met, witnessing a moment so vivid it carves a new shape in your mind. And you ask yourself the unthinkable. Which life is more real, the one you left behind in the dark, or the one you now inhabit, half-dressed, coffee brewing, with sunlight creeping across the wall? It doesn't stop at waking. Sometimes, fragments from your dreams bleed into the day. You recall a conversation, a smell, a place, and you can't tell if it really happened or if it was only woven from sleep. Memory blurs at the edges. There are days when the laugh of a stranger or the echo of a song feels more familiar than yesterday's breakfast. You start to question the authority of memory itself. Which moments are true? Did you actually have that fight with your old friend? Or was it only played out in some midnight theater? Did you win that prize, lose that love, visit that city? The facts wobble under your gaze, unsteady. The overlap becomes a quiet invasion. This is the overlapping reality syndrome, the silent fusion of dream and memory, where the boundaries of lived experience dissolve. In this world, dreams don't stay in the night. They infect the day, infiltrating your history, altering your sense of who you are and what you've lived. Sometimes, you cling to a childhood memory, splashing in a golden-lit river, a secret room under the stairs, a face smiling at you in the rain. You'd swear it was real, until a photo album or an old friend's story contradicts you. It happens to everyone, this confusion, this merging. Some memories are seeded by dreams so convincing that, over time, they claim a space in your autobiography. You feel their weight, their shape, as if you can reach out and touch them. Think of the first time you met someone and felt an instant recognition, a flash of déjà vu so powerful it pins you in place. You try to trace its origin. Was it from a past life? Or was it a dream you forgot, but your body remembered? Or those moments when an emotion wells up, a sudden grief or joy, triggered by a stranger's face or the scent of rain on hot pavement. Your logical mind tries to file it away, but the feeling is too strong, too precise. Maybe you once lived this moment in another world, while your body slept. Maybe the boundaries between then and now, here and there, are thinner than we know. Sometimes this overlapping can be unsettling. You start to question your own reliability. You tell a story to a friend, about a place you visited, a secret you shared, a wild event. And as you speak, doubt creeps in. Was this real, or did you only dream it? Was it ever yours? You wonder how much of your life is fiction, that your mind quietly staged in the darkness and later submitted as fact. How many of your memories are borrowed from dreams, spliced into your story without permission? But there's beauty here too, a kind of secret richness. If you let yourself live in this overlap, reality becomes layered, mysterious, and more alive. You can choose which memories to nurture. You can let the dream's wisdom seep into your waking self. You might be braver because you recall a victory that never happened, or gentler because you remember a loss you never really endured. The world becomes textured, possibilities blooming at the edges of what you can verify. You are no longer just a linear sequence of facts, but a collage of all the worlds your mind has dared to visit. The overlapping reality syndrome is not an illness, but a paradox, an invitation to question what it means to be real. It is a reminder that consciousness is not a closed box, but a field where the seeds of memory, fantasy, and experience take root and grow together, tangled and bright. It's possible you will never again be able to draw a clean line between dream and memory, between what happened and what you only felt. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the most authentic life is the one that honors both, the remembered and the imagined, the lived and the dreamed, together, echoing through you long after you wake. The recurrence compulsion loop. You wake with a memory so sharp it aches, a dream too beautiful, too urgent to leave behind. All morning, you chase it, retracing the images in your mind. You remember the faded sunlight spilling through a window you've never seen, a voice that spoke your name like it mattered, the feeling of belonging, or wonder, or fear, that no waking moment quite matches. The dream is gone, but the ache remains, a quiet, persistent urge to return, to find the portal back to that impossible world. This is the recurrence compulsion loop, the longing to reclaim a dream, the desperate effort to recreate its sensations, only to discover the pursuit itself becomes an illusion. You try to conjure the dream in daylight. Maybe you drive past the same street you walked in your sleep, wander the park where your dream self lingered, stand in front of a stranger's door that felt so familiar a few hours ago. Each time, you hope the spell will return, that the thin membrane between worlds will dissolve, letting you slip back into that hidden reality. But reality is never quite so generous. The colors are always a shade too dull, the sounds just a little out of tune, The people who greeted you so warmly in the dream are indifferent, distracted, or gone entirely. You realize that the world you long for was never in the places you now haunt, but somewhere deeper, woven into your mind, just out of reach. And still, you keep trying. You replay the same song, hoping the notes will open the same doors in your mind. You wear the same clothes, repeat the same words, retrace the same steps. Each ritual is a silent plea, take me back. You're not alone in this compulsion. There are countless stories of people haunted by dreams. Dreams so vivid they spark an obsession, a need to return. Some wake from a love so deep that real relationships seem pale by comparison. Others wander through their days hunting for a landscape, a city, a secret passage they know is impossible, but still hope to find. They become collectors of symbols, gathering scraps of resemblance and meaning in a world that refuses to cooperate. There's the man who dreamed of a city with violet skies and golden towers, so real he can still smell the strange flowers, feel the press of cobblestones beneath his feet. He starts painting the city, sketching its architecture from memory. He walks the streets at dusk, looking for a color in the clouds that will match his memory. His friends worry gently about how much time he spends searching for a place that does not exist, but he can't stop. The longing is a wound that will not close, or the woman who dreamed of a reunion with a friend lost to time. In the dream they laughed and forgave each other beneath an old oak tree, sunlight dancing on their faces. She visits every park in the city, hoping to find a tree that feels right. She texts her friend, then deletes the message. No answer, no closure, just the ache of what could have been, kept alive by the memory of a dream. Science has names for this kind of longing. Psychologists call it repetition compulsion, the urge to relive past emotions, to seek comfort in familiar pain. But what makes the recurrence compulsion loop so strange is that what you're chasing never truly happened. Not in the ordinary sense. It's not nostalgia, but homesickness for a world that only existed while you slept. It's a phantom limb for a life you never lived. This longing can become a kind of trap. The more you chase the dream, the more your real life begins to dissolve into echo and imitation. You start to overlook the world as it is, blinded by the hunger for what it might have been. Relationships fray, days blur together, and every moment is measured against the memory of something just out of reach. You find yourself replaying scenes, conversations, even gestures, searching for the lost magic, missing the possibility of something real unfolding right in front of you. And yet, there is a strange beauty in this compulsion, a reminder of the power of imagination, the depth of desire, the way dreams can shape the waking world. Some say that this longing is a form of creative energy, a call to build, write, or transform. When the world cannot give you what you seek, you try to make it yourself. You write stories, compose music, create art, all in service of a memory that cannot be recaptured, only reimagined. Sometimes, the pursuit itself becomes a kind of salvation, proof that you are still alive, still reaching for wonder, even if it always slips through your fingers. But eventually you must let go. You realize that every attempt to return only deepens the illusion, turning longing into a labyrinth with no exit. The dream can be cherished, but not pursued. Its meaning is not in the repetition, but in the lesson it leaves behind. A reminder that reality, too, can be shaped, colored, and made beautiful, if you are willing to look at it with new eyes. So you breathe in, let the memory settle, and step forward. The dream remains, a secret garden you can visit in quiet moments, but no longer a prison. You learn to see the magic in the world as it is, not as it was, or as you wish it could be, but as it unfolds, unpredictable and alive. The recurrence compulsion loop breaks, not with the return of the dream, but with the acceptance of the present, a different kind of awakening, quieter, but no less profound. The lucidity addiction spiral. You close your eyes, already halfway to another world. You've learned the signs, the rituals, the secret handshakes of the mind. Maybe it began with a moment of pure, impossible clarity, a night when you realized, deep inside a dream, that you were the one shaping it. The rules melted at your touch, gravity bent, the scenery warped and obeyed. You stretched your hands, and the universe answered. The first time is electric, unforgettable. You step into a dream knowing it is a dream, and suddenly the world is yours to sculpt. You soar above cities made of memory and longing. You conjure lost loves, face old fears, rewrite heartbreak. You snap your fingers and paint the sky in new colors. Summon music out of silence, make the impossible not just possible, but real. At least for as long as you can hold it. You wake up exhilarated, changed. The taste of power lingers in your mouth, sweet and dangerous. And then, almost imperceptibly, the spiral begins. Waking life, in comparison, is flat, predictable, unmoving. You notice it first in small moments. The ordinary dullness of sunlight on your desk, the weight of routine conversations, the familiar ache of wanting more. You catch yourself comparing reality to the endless possibility of dreams, and reality always comes up short. Your mind begins to hunt for cracks, ways to slip back into that state of total authorship. You scan for the dreamlike in your waking hours, the sense of unreality when you wake too quickly, the déjà vu that prickles your spine, the moments when sunlight flickers strangely or your own hands feel unfamiliar, and you wonder, just for an instant, if this is still the dream. The border between worlds blurs. You touch surfaces, repeat mantras, check your reflection for signs. Am I awake? Am I sure? At first, the thrill is subtle, a game you play alone. But the hunger grows. You research techniques. You keep a dream journal, scribbling in the dark, hoping to catch the thread that will lead you back. You practice reality checks until they become compulsions. Maybe you change your sleep schedule, experiment with alarms and supplements, all to capture that elusive high. Lucidity, once a rare blessing, becomes a goal, a drug. You find communities of others like you, chasing lucidity, swapping tips, sharing stories of impossible adventures and personal awakenings. You are not alone in your craving. But the price is real, and the spiral deepens. The more you master your dreams, the more reality disappoints. The thrill of control, of infinite possibility, leaves the waking world feeling sluggish, unfinished, bound by laws you cannot bend. You begin to notice your mind wandering during conversations, your eyes glazing over during routine tasks, your thoughts slipping, again and again, to the next chance you'll have to escape. You long for sleep, not for rest, but for the next lucid world. Insomnia and anticipation entwine, the hunger sharpens. It is a subtle addiction, one that hides behind language of self-discovery and freedom. But you know the truth. The craving is real. You begin to engineer your life around the possibility of lucidity. You avoid late nights out, skip social obligations, keep your phone dark, protect your sleep with a possessive intensity. You daydream about the next time you'll take flight, rewrite your story, become the god of your own creation. Reality becomes a waiting room, a gray vestibule before the next dazzling plunge into the subconscious. Sometimes, the cracks widen. You have false awakenings, dreams in which you wake up but haven't really woken up. You test the light switches, count your fingers, try to push your hand through the wall, desperate for proof. You wonder if you will ever be truly certain again. The line between dream and reality grows thin, fragile. Your memories tangle. You question events, conversations, even the shape of your own life. Did that really happen, or was it only a dream? Your sense of self splinters, becomes both larger and less defined. You are the dreamer, the dream, the god, the lost child searching for home. For some, the spiral goes even deeper. Lucid dreaming becomes the only place where you feel alive, where you have agency, where joy is not rationed or regulated by the outside world. You begin to resent reality, its limitations, its unchangeable rules, its painful persistence. The people around you seem flatter, harder to reach. You want to tell them about the other world, the one behind your eyelids, but words never quite do it justice. So, you retreat. You guard the secret fiercely, feeding the addiction in solitude. Yet, beneath the hunger, something else stirs. Lucid dreaming exposes the raw truth that control is always temporary. Even inside the dream, things slip away. The world wobbles, meaning collapses. You lose your grip. The act of chasing lucidity can become the act of chasing yourself, a spiral that deepens but never truly resolves. The more you grasp, the more you yearn, the more the world, both waking and dreaming, remains just beyond your absolute command. And sometimes, in the quiet aftermath, you realize what you're really searching for isn't control, but meaning. You want to know that you matter, that you shape the story, that you have power over your fate. But the spiral reminds you, even the most lucid dream is haunted by mystery, by the limits of your own creation. Even the dream god wakes up, blinking, in a body that aches, in a world that refuses to bend. The hunger remains, a companion, a torment, a gift. You move through the waking world, always searching for the next crack, the next doorway, the next taste of that freedom. And perhaps, in that search, you become more alive, not in spite of reality's limits, but because of them. The spiral never ends. Each night you fall, each morning you rise, changed by what you found on the other side. Still craving, still dreaming, still searching for the seam where dream and life become one. The familiar stranger effect. You're moving through the day, half distracted by errands and screens, your mind wrapped in the predictable layers of routine, and then suddenly, you see them. A face in the crowd, a cashier at the market, a passenger in the seat across from you. They glance up, catch your eyes, and the world seems to stutter. For a heartbeat, the air thickens with electricity, a ripple that only you seem to feel. Because in that instant, you know with bone-deep certainty, you have seen this person before. Not here, not in this city, or this life, or this moment, but somewhere else. Somewhere behind your eyes, in the weightless silence of the night, you realize with a jolt that you have met them countless times in your dreams. The feeling is as clear and precise as déjà vu, but sharper, stranger. Not just a flicker of familiarity, but a whole library of nocturnal memories, sliding open in the background. You remember their voice echoing through some forgotten landscape, the curve of their smile in moonlit corridors, the way they moved through the dream world with an ease that now seems uncanny. Maybe they were a confidant, a rival, a lover, a faceless witness to your midnight wanderings. Maybe you never even spoke, just passed each other again and again, silent but significant. Now, awake, your mind races to make sense of it. How is it possible? Was it only coincidence, your brain stitching random fragments into a plausible story? Or is something deeper at play, a hidden architecture connecting dreams and waking life, scripting encounters you thought were random, but were always inevitable? You try to dismiss it, but the sensation lingers. Every detail about the stranger calls to you, the way their hands rest on the counter, the color of their jacket, the rhythm of their walk. Your body reacts before your mind can rationalize, your heart pounding, your senses sharpened, as if you've stumbled into a secret test, a message folded into the fabric of the ordinary. In the presence of this stranger, reality feels thinner, more fragile, as if a door has opened between worlds. You replay the dream fragments in your mind, searching for connections. Maybe you remember running through endless hallways, this person always a few steps ahead or behind, a shadow that never quite caught the light. Maybe they were the voice urging you to wake up, or the hand that pulled you out of danger, or the judge at some surreal trial in your unconscious. You remember faces blurred by dream logic, emotions intensified beyond anything you felt in daylight. Now, faced with this stranger, those feelings surge back. Affection, fear, curiosity, longing, all out of proportion to the facts of the present moment. You try to speak, but your words sound strange in your own ears, like lines from a play you only half remember. Maybe you don't say anything at all. Maybe you just watch, waiting for a sign that they feel it too, that echo of recognition, that invisible thread tightening between you. Sometimes you see it in their eyes, a flicker of confusion, a hesitant smile, a look that says, "Have we met before?" And in that moment, you're both caught in the same gravity, orbiting a mystery neither can name. You start to wonder how many other strangers you've already met in dreams. How many faces on the street are secretly woven into your unconscious? Recurring players and stories you barely remember. Messengers from a life that runs parallel to this one, only visible when you close your eyes. Maybe you've met them all. The barista who always seems to know your order, the neighbor you nod to in the elevator, the child on the bus with the familiar, searching gaze. You begin to suspect that your unconscious is a casting director, drawing from the vast population of the world to populate your nightly narratives, rehearsing encounters that will someday spill into daylight. The effect can be disorienting, even frightening. There are moments when you feel hunted by your own memories, haunted by faces that refuse to fade. You start to question the boundaries of self, wondering if your mind is as private as you believed, or if it is porous, leaking dream logic into waking life, stitching reality together with invisible threads. You imagine a vast web connecting every dreamer, every stranger, every story ever told in the theater of the mind. What if, somewhere, you are appearing in someone else's dreams, unknown, uninvited, shaping their perceptions with your presence? There are theories, of course. Science calls it cryptomnesia, the recycling of forgotten faces, your mind storing every passerby, every fleeting glance, and summoning them up in dreams as if they were invented whole. But the feeling is too visceral to dismiss. The emotional charge is too powerful, the timing too precise. Some people talk of soul connections, of reincarnation, of parallel lives bleeding into each other at the edges. Others invoke simulation theory. What if this is a programmed encounter, a glitch that reveals the machinery beneath the world? Whatever the explanation, the experience changes you. After meeting a familiar stranger, you find yourself watching every encounter more closely, listening for echoes, scanning for signs. You start to keep a dream journal, tracing faces and names, looking for patterns. Sometimes, the same stranger appears night after night, changing roles, crossing boundaries, friend one night, antagonist the next. And then, days or weeks later, you meet them again in waking life, and the pattern deepens. You feel as if you are moving through a script, a hidden narrative unfolding beneath the surface. The familiar stranger effect is a paradox. It is both thrilling and unsettling, a reminder that the mind is not a sealed vault, but an open portal, vulnerable to forces you cannot see. It forces you to question the integrity of memory, the origins of intuition, the possibility of fate. It makes the world feel haunted, alive, charged with significance. Every encounter becomes a potential reunion, every stranger a messenger from the other side of sleep. And in this new world, nothing is merely random. The bus driver who seems to know your name, the teacher whose words strike a hidden chord, the doctor whose touch feels both foreign and achingly familiar. All of them carry the residue of dreams you can't quite remember, stories that shimmer just beyond the reach of language. Sometimes, you find the courage to speak. You tell the stranger, "I feel like I know you." You see relief flicker across their face, or confusion, or fear. Maybe they remember you too, from some dream they can't describe, some place that doesn't exist on any map. Or maybe you both stand in silence, letting the mystery hover between you like a living thing. And sometimes the encounter is wordless. A glance, a nod, a brush of shoulders in a crowded room. The connection flashes, burns, and fades, leaving you altered, aware that the boundary between worlds is thinner than you ever imagined. You go home changed, carrying the weight of the encounter in your chest, wondering what it means and why it happened. The familiar stranger effect is a doorway. It invites you to step out of certainty and into wonder, to accept that not every story has an explanation, not every feeling has a cause. It asks you to trust your intuition, to honor the deep ancient wisdom of the dreaming mind. It reminds you that you are more than your memories, more than your waking self. You are a traveler between worlds, an unwitting participant in dramas that began long before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. And so, the next time you see a stranger and your heart catches in your throat, don't look away. Let yourself feel the full unsettling force of recognition. Welcome the mystery. And honor the dreamer within you, the part that remembers what the waking mind forgets. Because sometimes, the most important people in your life are the ones you've never met, except perhaps in dreams. The sensation persistence glitch. You wake, not just with memories of the dream you left behind, but with something stranger, an echo that refuses to fade. You run your tongue along your teeth and taste the sweet, impossible fruit you ate moments ago in a world that never existed. You can still feel the gentle pressure of a hand on your shoulder, still hear the faint, haunting melody someone hummed to you as you drifted between sleep and waking. These are not memories. They are not thoughts. They are persistent sensations, real as sunlight, undeniable as pain. For hours, sometimes for the entire day, you carry the afterimage of a reality that logic says should have vanished with your dreams. This is the sensation persistence glitch. It's a quirk of consciousness, a rift in the boundary between waking and dreaming, where your senses seem to remember more than your conscious mind. You get up, move through your day, and the taste lingers. The touch remains. The song loops quietly at the edge of hearing, as if the world of dreams left fingerprints all over your nerves. The glitch isn't just about confusion or déjà vu, it's about embodiment. A full sensory persistence that convinces you your body has traveled somewhere your mind can barely recall. You might feel the texture of sand underfoot from a beach that doesn't exist, the salt in the air sticking to your skin as you stand in your city apartment. Or maybe you wake from a nightmare of falling, your stomach still hollow, gravity still wrong, every muscle in your body tense with remembered fear. You know, rationally it's over, but your heart pounds, your hands sweat, your senses lag behind your awareness as if they're tuned to a different frequency. Sometimes the glitch is beautiful, a lover's embrace that feels so vivid you instinctively search your bed for a warmth that never was. You spend the morning lost in nostalgia for a face you can't place, a voice you can't name. Other times, it's eerie. A taste of smoke after a dream of fire, a shiver on your skin from an imagined chill. A smell so sharp and precise it feels like a message from another life. For a moment, you wonder if the dream was a premonition or a visit from some parallel existence. But soon, the world's rational rhythm pulls you back. Still, the afterglow clings. Neuroscience will tell you it's just a misfiring, a lingering loop of sensory data in the brain, carried over from REM sleep, replayed like a song stuck on repeat. But no scientific explanation can capture the conviction with which your senses insist on their reality. When you bite into your breakfast and find your tongue searching for the taste of something that only existed in your dream, you realize how much of life is built on these fleeting, fragile signals. The sensation persistence. Glitch makes you question the foundations of what you trust. You start to wonder how much of your waking experience is shaped by invisible echoes, ghosts of past sensations, subtle carryovers from dreams, untraceable inputs you can't quite name. Did you really hear your name whispered in the hallway, or was it a remnant of last night's story? Did you feel the rain against your cheek this morning, or was it just your skin remembering a dream storm? For a few minutes, the boundaries blur. It can be disorienting, even unsettling, to live in a world where your senses betray you, where the body seems to hold on to things the mind cannot. But it's also proof of how porous the self really is. We are not machines, perfectly calibrated to discard the old and embrace the new. We are messy, leaky, haunted by the places we've never truly been. People who experience this glitch often find themselves quietly searching for meaning in it. Is it a message from the subconscious or a simple artifact of memory? Is it proof that the dreaming mind is more powerful than the waking mind? You learn to cherish the sensation, even as it fades, to taste the last notes of the dream fruit, to linger in the warmth of a phantom embrace, to hum the dream song under your breath as you go about your morning. Some days, the glitch persists longer than others. Some nights, you go to bed longing for the return of the sensation, hoping that the next dream will bring back the flavor, the touch, the sound that made your ordinary world feel enchanted. In the end, the sensation persistence glitch is a reminder. Reality is not as fixed as we want to believe. The world is soft-edged, dream-soaked, made up of signals that slip between realms. Our senses, ever loyal, sometimes cling to the impossible, proving that even when the mind lets go, the body remembers. The emotional carryover trap. You open your eyes to a world already burning with feeling. Sometimes it's grief, thick and wild, as if you've lost something precious. Sometimes it's anger, a pure electric current racing through your veins, crackling for a reason you cannot name. Sometimes you wake with joy so sharp you want to sing, or a lightness so free it lifts your heart out of your chest. The strangest part is, you have no idea why. There's no memory, no event to anchor this feeling. All you remember is sleep, a dream whose story vanished on waking, leaving behind nothing but the ache, the heat, the thundering rush of emotion that refuses to fade. You lie there, searching the darkness behind your eyes, hoping for a scrap of narrative, a single word or image that might explain the storm inside you. But there's nothing, just the overwhelming certainty that something happened, something that mattered. This is the emotional carryover trap, a phenomenon as mysterious as it is powerful, the secret hand that shapes your mood before the world has even said good morning. All day, the feeling stays with you, coloring every moment, You might catch yourself snapping at someone for no reason, your patience worn thin by a frustration you can't trace. Or you drift through your morning in a fog of sadness, blinking back tears you don't understand, apologizing to your reflection in the mirror. Sometimes it's euphoria, a bubbling, uncontainable delight that makes the mundane shimmer, as if the world itself is laughing with you. The people around you might not notice the difference, but inside, it feels like living under a spell, the rules of reality rewritten by a script you never got to read. You want to shake it off, to return to neutral, but the emotion clings like perfume on your skin, refusing to fade. Science has tried to explain this strange inheritance. During REM sleep, your brain runs wild, weaving together memories, fears, hopes, and fantasies with little regard for logic or, chronology. The stories are intense, the feelings real, even if the details dissolve with daylight. The limbic system, your brain's emotional engine, roars at full speed in dreams, faster even than when you're awake. But the part of your brain that files and sorts memories, the prefrontal cortex, is drowsy, letting the story slip away as soon as your eyes open. The result? You wake up drenched in feeling, but stripped of context. Your body remembers what your mind forgets. This isn't just science, it's everyday life. Maybe you wake up terrified, heart pounding, convinced you've just escaped some danger, but by breakfast, the only thing you're sure of is a vague sense of dread. Maybe you wake in tears, your pillow damp, mourning someone you never knew, or you wake with laughter bubbling in your throat, joy radiant and inexplicable. The dream is gone, the story lost, but the emotion survives, vivid and relentless. Sometimes it changes the course of your day. A fight with a loved one that never should have happened, a sudden urge to create, to dance, to hide, or to heal. You are driven by a ghost, haunted by a feeling with no name. There's a peculiar loneliness in this. How do you explain it to anyone else? I'm angry because of a dream I can't remember. I'm in love with a stranger I'll never meet. I'm grieving something I never had. These sentences sound absurd, but they are true in the way only feelings can be. You might even hide it, ashamed of how fragile your sense of self seems, how easily it is tilted by a phantom event. But you are not alone. Everyone, at some point, has lived through a day shaped by a forgotten dream. Everyone has felt the invisible tug of a story lost to the morning light. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a fragment surfaces, a color, a sound, a name, a flash of water, the warmth of a hand, the chill of betrayal. But most days, the story stays hidden, and you are left only with its afterglow. You might try to meditate, to write, to talk it out, hoping the feeling will loosen its grip. Or you might just carry it, letting it shape the rhythm of your hours, the tone of your voice, the choices you make. There's a strange power in this. The emotional carryover trap reminds you that you are more than the sum of your waking choices. You are a creature of night and day, of memory and forgetting, of feelings born in darkness and carried into the light. What does it mean to live with feelings whose origins you cannot trace? Maybe it means that part of you is always in conversation with the unknown, listening to the secret messages of your own mind. Maybe it means you are constantly being remade, shaped by stories you will never fully know. And maybe, just maybe, it means there's more to you than you can ever understand, a depth that sleep only hints at, but never fully reveals. So, tomorrow, when you wake with a heart full of feeling and no story to explain it, don't turn away. Sit with it. Honor it. Let it guide you, gently, through the day. You are living proof that the unseen matters, that even forgotten dreams can leave marks that last. And in that, there is a kind of beauty, a reminder that your soul is deeper, wilder, and more mysterious than you ever imagined. The dream infection hypothesis. You open your eyes to the gray quiet of morning, not realizing something fundamental has shifted. In the secret theater of sleep, a seed was planted, a notion, an urge, a strange new certainty. You move through your day as if nothing has changed, unaware that last night's dream is already at work, quietly colonizing your waking mind. This is the dream infection hypothesis. The idea that dreams are not just empty stories, but invasive agents that shape your beliefs, your ambitions, even the path your life will take, all without your conscious consent. It starts simply, almost innocently. You wake with a feeling you can't quite name, a trace of longing or dread or hope that wasn't there before. Maybe it's a sudden impulse to reach out to an old friend. Maybe it's a fear you can't explain, a vague anxiety that shadows your morning, steering your choices with invisible hands. You dismiss it, call it mood, ignore the origin. But the roots grow deeper. As days pass, you notice yourself making decisions that seem natural, yet strangely new. A new goal takes hold, a belief shifts. What you don't see is the ghostly outline of last night's dream, now living behind your eyes. Science has long insisted that dreams are just mental noise, leftover static from the day, the mind's effort to file and discard useless information. But what if that's wrong? What if dreams are more like viruses, embedding themselves in your neural code, rewriting what you want, what you fear, who you love? Consider the artist who, after years of creative drought, dreams of painting a luminous city. She wakes with urgency and, almost unconsciously, buys paint and canvas. She tells herself it's inspiration, but later, tracing the brush in her hand, she remembers the dream and realizes the idea was never hers alone. It was planted, germinated in sleep, blooming in daylight. Or the man who's always feared the ocean. He dreams of swimming in deep water, not with terror, but joy. In the days that follow, his fear recedes, replaced by curiosity. He signs up for a sailing class, wonders why he waited so long. The shift seems miraculous, but underneath the dream did its work, sowing the seeds of a new self, one memory at a time. Sometimes the infection is subtle, invisible. A belief takes root that was never yours, a conviction about what is possible or what is doomed. You may find yourself suddenly doubting a friendship, chasing a career you never considered, falling in love with someone who, days before, was only background noise in your life. When you look for the source, you find nothing, a blank space where certainty should be. You don't remember the dream that planted the idea. That is its power. This isn't fantasy. Studies show that dreams influence waking choices in ways we rarely notice. In experiments, people exposed to problem-solving dreams perform better on puzzles, as if the solution was smuggled in overnight. Trauma survivors report dreams that change their relationship to fear or to hope. Even scientists admit that dreams can alter goals, shape creativity, shift values. The infection is real, but invisible. Some dreams are more virulent than others. Nightmares can spread anxiety like a contagion, making you avoid places, people, or risks that you once enjoyed. Other dreams carry hope, or boldness, or even healing. There are stories of people who dream their way out of addiction, waking with the sense that a burden has been lifted. There are stories of those who, after losing someone they loved, find comfort in a dream so profound that the ache of grief is softened for years. In every case, the dream does not just end at dawn. It takes root. It grows. It transforms you from within. But the infection is not always benign. Sometimes the ideas seated in sleep are dangerous. Fears that corrode your confidence, obsessions that narrow your life, beliefs that harden into chains. You may find yourself sabotaging happiness, doubting your worth, or living by rules you never chose. All because a dream, forgotten and unseen, took hold in the fertile ground of your mind. The dream infection hypothesis forces us to ask, how much of what I believe is truly mine? How many of my ambitions, my fears, my certainties began as the flicker of a dream, planted by my own mind, or by forces I will never understand? The line between dream and waking is thinner than we imagine. Each night, we open the gates, and what enters us can never fully be expelled. So the next time you find yourself pulled by a new longing, or haunted by an old fear, pause and listen. Search for the echo of a dream. Recognize that some of the most important decisions you make may not begin in daylight, but in the silent garden of your sleeping mind. And wonder quietly who you will become tomorrow, when tonight's dreams take root and the infection begins again. The echoing dialogue illusion. There are mornings when you wake with a phrase lingering on your lips, a sentence, a whisper, a fragment of language that isn't quite yours. It echoes in your mind, soft as mist, strange as prophecy. The voice is sometimes your own, sometimes another's. An old friend, a lost parent, a lover you never met, or a stranger whose face blurs at the edge of memory. The words are simple, but they vibrate with meaning, charged with a significance you can't explain. All day the phrase follows you, looping in your head, resurfacing at the oddest moments, as if it's become a kind of private mantra, a message encoded in the quiet spaces of your thoughts. This is the echoing dialogue illusion, the strange, unnerving power of words spoken in dreams to ripple into your waking life, guiding choices, shaping moods, bending the very narrative of your day. It is as if some secret part of your mind receives instructions while you sleep, coded messages from another world, designed to steer you without your consent. Sometimes the words are comforting. Sometimes they are warnings, riddles, commands, or questions that refuse to leave you alone. You find yourself obeying, resisting, negotiating with voices that no one else can hear. You walk into the kitchen, and there it is again, a phrase looping in the background of your mind. Wait for the blue door. You don't know what it means, but suddenly you're hesitant to make the same old choices. You leave the house a minute later than usual, eyes scanning for something you've never seen before. You pick up a book in a store because a dream voice once whispered, "Read the red cover." You turn left instead of right because in your sleep someone said, "Trust the curve, not the corner." The words nudge you, like gentle hands on your shoulders, invisible but insistent. Sometimes the dream phrases are deeply personal, tied to wounds you haven't touched in years. You already forgave them. The words are soft, but they carry the force of a revelation. You find yourself softening towards someone you swore you'd never forgive, compelled by an authority you can't explain. Or maybe the dream delivers a warning. Don't answer the call. Hours later, your phone rings, and your hand hesitates, the echo lingering in your bones. Sometimes you ignore the voice, but regret follows, as if you've disobeyed an oracle. Other times, the echo saves you. A missed accident, averted disaster, a moment of luck that feels impossibly orchestrated. These echoing dialogues aren't always so obvious. Sometimes they are background noise, blending into the day's decisions until you forget where they came from. You find yourself repeating phrases in conversation, offering advice to friends that originated in your dreams. Trust the river. Let it break. Don't look back. The words feel wise, mysterious, as if you're channeling knowledge from a deeper, hidden source. You wonder if you're the only one who lives like this, haunted by dream speak, nudged by messages from the dark. But you are not alone. Quietly, almost shamefully, people admit to carrying their own echoing phrases. A mother who hears her late father's voice say, "Keep the light on." A young man who recalls his childhood dog barking his name years after the dog is gone. An artist who paints the same motif again and again because, in sleep, a stranger once whispered, "Find the circles." These phrases become talismans, secret spells that shield us, push us, help us move through a world that otherwise feels random and silent. Why do these dream dialogues carry such power? Science might say they are just the mind's way of sorting memories, mixing fragments of language and feeling into new combinations. But that explanation feels thin, hollow, against the weight of experience. There is something uncanny about the way a dream's phrase returns. Unbidden, impossible, electric. It's as if, in sleep, the mind tunes to a different frequency, one that picks up on fears, hopes, and possibilities not visible in the glare of waking life. The words spoken there come wrapped in myth, in mystery, in the ancient logic of the subconscious. They carry the gravity of fate. For some, the illusion deepens. The phrases become so persistent, so perfectly timed, that it feels as if something is reaching through the veil, offering help, guidance, or warning from another plane. You start to listen for the voices, to trust the echoes, to surrender small decisions to the dream logic whispering in your ear. You wonder if these are truly messages from beyond, or just the fragments of yourself, split off and returning home. Either way, you obey, and life begins to change. You notice that the world starts to feel a little more magical, a little less determined by chance. Each echoing phrase becomes a breadcrumb, a signpost on a secret path only you can walk. The choices you make, big and small, are tinged with the shimmering unreality of a life shaped by dreams. You find meaning in coincidence, destiny in repetition, purpose in the small commands that arrive while you sleep. Sometimes, though, the echoing dialogue is heavy, a burden, not a blessing. The words refuse to leave, looping through your mind like a curse. Don't trust him. It's already too late. Turn back. You struggle to break free, to reclaim your autonomy, to quiet voices that don't belong. You ask yourself, am I losing touch with reality? Am I possessed by something I cannot see? The fear is real, but so is the hunger. For answers, for guidance, for connection to something larger than yourself. Perhaps, in the end, it doesn't matter where the voices come from. Whether they are psychic signals, stray memories, or the secret voice of your own deeper self, they shape you all the same. They become part of your private mythology, the chorus that sings you through every decision, every hesitation, every leap into the unknown. And so, you listen. You move through life with an ear cocked to the world behind the world, always waiting for the next phrase to arrive, to echo, to guide. In this, you are both haunted and blessed, guided by whispers, steered by mysteries, forever changed by the dialogue that began in a place you can never fully return to. The alternate life paradox. There is a secret universe you visit every night, a world stitched together by the logic of sleep, woven from memories you've never made in daylight. You close your eyes, surrender to the pull of gravity, and fall, not into darkness, but into an existence just as coherent, just as rich, as the one you're about to leave behind. In this other world, you are someone else, or perhaps more truly yourself than you have ever been while awake. The faces there are as familiar as your own reflection. The places hold a gravity you cannot explain. The passage of time is not measured in hours or days, but in years. Years that you live out while your body lies motionless in a silent room. It begins innocently enough. The first night, you dream of a house with blue shutters and wild ivy growing up the side. A woman greets you at the door. She is your mother, though she looks nothing like the one you know. There's a brother who laughs like no one you've ever met, but the sound of his joy is etched deep in your bones. You wander the streets, learning the landscape, a crooked lane that leads to the river, a clock tower that tolls at dusk, a city square where every evening the townspeople gather beneath strings of lanterns. The air smells different. The sky is a deeper blue. It feels real, solid, and you are home. The next night, you return. The dream picks up where it left off. No recap, no reset, as if you pressed pause and unpaused a life that never stopped living in your absence. Days pass, then weeks, then years. You grow up, or grow old, or grow young again. You make friends, real friends whose secrets you know by heart. You fall in love, sometimes with the same person again and again, sometimes with someone entirely new. You struggle, you grieve, you triumph. Each night, the story moves forward. Each morning, waking feels like being ripped out of context, torn from the continuity of a narrative you've come to cherish. At first, you try to explain it away. It's just a dream, you tell yourself. My mind is playing tricks. But the feeling only intensifies. The dreams become more detailed, more persistent. You learn the history of the city, the names of the shopkeepers, the shape of the clouds at sunset. You remember the birthdays of dream friends. You develop muscle memory for skills you never learned while awake. The way to dance the festival steps, the path through the orchard in winter, the song everyone sings when the rain comes. Sometimes, you wake up mid-sentence, mid-embrace, mid-fall. Your heart hammers with loss. You carry the ache through the day, the longing for a place you can only reach when the world is silent. You find yourself distracted in meetings, unable to concentrate in conversations, haunted by a memory that no one around you shares. You try to write it down, to keep the dream alive, but the words slip through your fingers. There is a language in that world, an untranslatable logic, a map that only makes sense at night. The paradox is this. The dream life becomes more vivid, more consequential than the one you live by daylight. You begin to feel as if you are living two lives, and the balance is shifting. The waking world starts to feel thin, like a photograph left out in the sun. Your real job, your real friends, your real family, suddenly they seem less real, less urgent. You catch yourself longing for the end of the day, yearning for sleep, craving the return to the place where you belong. Waking up no longer feels like coming home. It feels like exile. You wonder if you're losing your mind. But you are not alone. There are others who carry this secret. People who speak in hushed tones about the city that only exists at night. The family they miss more than their blood kin. The lovers they meet in the corridors of sleep. Sometimes, you recognize them in waking life. a look of distance in the eyes, a hesitation before answering, a sense that their attention is always divided, split across universes. Scientists have tried to explain it. Some call it a product of hyperlucid dreaming, the brain's uncanny power to build consistent narratives over months, years, even decades. Others suggest it's a side effect of trauma or longing, a subconscious attempt to rewrite history, to create a reality more bearable than the one you've been given. But the explanations always fall short. They can describe the mechanism, but not the meaning. They cannot explain why your heart aches for a life that was never yours, or why the ache feels more honest than anything you've known awake. Sometimes, the two worlds bleed together. You smell the dream city's rain in the middle of a sunny afternoon. You hear the echo of a lullaby you've never learned. You meet a stranger on the street and feel the shock of recognition. Sure, you've known them for years in that other world. You slip up, mention a detail from your alternate life to a friend, and see confusion flicker across their face. You laugh it off. But inside, you mourn the loneliness of living a double existence. The paradox deepens when the dream world changes. Characters die, new ones are born. Cities burn, rivers flood, lovers leave, friends betray. Sometimes you die in the dream, only to wake gasping, devastated, mourning your own loss. Sometimes you choose to stay asleep, fighting the pull of morning with every scrap of willpower, desperate to finish the story, to say goodbye, to see one last sunrise in the world that feels more like home than this one. You begin to fear that one day you won't return, that the door will close, the dream will dissolve, and you'll be left stranded in waking life, forever grieving a world no one else believes in. Or maybe worse, that the dream will become so compelling you'll stop wanting to wake up at all, surrendering to the illusion, losing yourself in a fiction more real than reality. But there is beauty in the paradox, too. You are privileged to live twice, to know the fierce joy of reunion, the bittersweet ache of loss, the intensity of love unburdened by consequence. You move through waking life changed, deeper, more empathetic, more aware of the fragility of every connection. You understand, in your bones, that reality is not as fixed as you were taught to believe, that you are more than your waking self. An entire cosmos lives inside you, spinning out stories that can never be fully told. The alternate life paradox is not an escape. It is an expansion. It is a reminder that the boundaries between worlds are thin, that identity is fluid, that time is a river with many branches. It is a call to cherish every world you inhabit, dream or waking, imagined or real, for each is a fragment of something greater, some larger mystery that holds you in its tides. So when you close your eyes tonight, remember, the life you are about to enter is no less real than the one you are about to leave. The friends who wait for you in sleep are no less dear than those who walk beside you in daylight. And the story you live while dreaming will shape you, mark you, transform you, until waking feels at last like the interruption it truly is. The memory substitution effect. You wake with a sense of certainty. You remember a conversation with a friend, a particular phrase they used, the color of the shirt they wore, the sound of their laughter echoing down the hallway. The memory is sharp, vivid, and strangely emotional. You carry it into your morning, into the hours that follow, believing absolutely in its reality. It isn't until later, sometimes days later, that you discover the truth. That conversation never happened, or it did, but the details are wrong, shuffled like a deck of cards and redealt by a mind that can no longer tell the difference between sleep and waking. What you remember as fact is nothing more than an echo, a residue of some long-forgotten dream masquerading as reality. This is the memory substitution effect, a quiet, uncanny glitch in the machinery of self, where dreams creep across the boundary and settle in among your waking memories. You would swear, with all the conviction in the world, that you left your keys by the kitchen sink, but when you look, they're nowhere to be found. You hunt, confused, convinced you saw yourself setting them down, only to realize later that the memory is borrowed from a dream. The hand placing the keys, the glint of metal, the sunlight on the counter, none of it ever existed outside the theater of your sleeping mind. It's not just objects, but stories. You might recall a phone call, words exchanged, promises made. Maybe you even feel the emotions stirred up by that call, the joy, the anxiety, the closure. Yet when you check your call history, There's no record, no evidence, just a gap where your certainty once stood. The mind, it seems, does not care about the distinction between dreams and reality. It stitches them together into a seamless tapestry, and you wander through your day guided by details that may never have happened. The effect can be subtle. You meet someone on the street and feel an instant sense of familiarity. You're sure you've seen their face before, heard their voice, shared a joke or a secret. But as you search your memory, you realize the familiarity comes from a dream you had weeks ago, where their features were blurred, their name forgotten by morning. And yet, the sensation lingers. The mind substitutes dream for memory, and the world grows stranger, softer, less certain with every passing hour. It happens in fragments, too. The color of a car you're sure belongs to your neighbor, the headline you thought you read, the snatch of melody playing in a cafe. All borrowed, all substituted, all mistaken for the real. Sometimes the error is harmless, a fleeting sense of déjà vu, a shrug and a smile. Other times, it can be deeply disorienting, making you question your sanity, your sense of self, the trustworthiness of your own mind. Scientists might call this source confusion or memory integration failure, a phenomenon where the lines between dream content and real experience blur beyond recognition. But the lived reality is far stranger. You begin to see your memories as fragile, shifting things, susceptible to the influence of stories your brain tells itself in the dark. The very details that define your past, your identity, become unstable, subject to revision by dreams that insist on being remembered. You start to wonder how much of your life is real and how much is borrowed, how many of your treasured recollections began as sleep's inventions. Did you really visit that cafe, or only dream of its warm light and clinking glasses? Did your friend actually say those words, or was it just your own mind, rehearsing the conversation in your sleep? The questions multiply, and with them grows a gentle paranoia, a sense that nothing is quite as solid as you want it to be. Yet, there is a strange comfort in this too. The memory substitution effect reveals the creative power of the mind, its willingness to rewrite the script, to populate your world with echoes and inventions. It shows you that your life is not a fixed archive, but a living, breathing novel, constantly revised, always in flux. Each morning you wake, you carry with you not just the facts of your existence, but the dreams that have woven themselves in, making your story richer, if also less certain. In the end, you learn to accept the unreliability of memory, to let go of the need for absolute certainty. You live with the echoes, the substitutions, the beautiful confusion that is life inside a dreaming brain, and you realize, with a kind of quiet awe, that every memory, real or invented, is a thread in the tapestry of who you are. The perpetual unreality syndrome. You wake to the sound of your own heartbeat, a familiar room bathed in morning light, but something feels off. It's the same bed, the same ceiling, the same half-remembered song drifting through your mind. Yet there's a subtle distance, as if reality has slipped one notch to the left, and you're left reaching through glass to touch the world. Maybe it started with a dream so real it bled into your morning, a conversation that lingers, a betrayal that stings, a secret that won't quite fade even though you know it never happened. Maybe it's the echo of déjà vu, the sense that you've lived this moment before, that time is folding in on itself, blurring the edges between the world behind your eyelids and the one in front of you. And once you notice the blending, you can't unsee it. You move through your day with the quiet suspicion that everything around you might be part of some hidden script. Every glance, every sound, every passing shadow feels slightly unreal, as if the world itself is performing for your benefit, or your confusion. This is the perpetual unreality syndrome, the moment your faith in your own perception begins to unravel, and each hour brings a new layer of doubt. The boundaries that once separated waking and dreaming begin to dissolve. What was once solid becomes fluid. You question not just the details, but the fabric of experience itself. Is this conversation genuine, or is it just the echo of some forgotten dream? Did you really say those words, or were they whispered in sleep? You watch your life unfold like a movie you've seen before, waiting for the camera to pull back and reveal the set, the actors, the director lurking behind the curtain. And in that watching, a certain innocence is lost. You can never again accept the world at face value. Every sense becomes suspect. You look at your hands and wonder if they are truly yours, or if you've borrowed them from some other self, one who walks in worlds you barely remember. You smell rain on pavement and recall a dream so vivid it still tingles in your bones. A storm that never happened. A street you've never seen. You taste coffee and feel the strange certainty that you've done this before, in another life, another dream, another script altogether. And so each day becomes a puzzle, a series of clues you can never quite piece together. Every sensation arrives with a question mark. Is this real, or is it just the residue of another reality, bleeding through the seams? This doubt infects even your memories. You remember moments from your past, childhood summers, whispered secrets, heartbreaks, and triumphs. But now, even these seem fragile, possibly staged. How many of your memories are genuine? And how many are the artifacts of dreams so convincing they rewrote your history? You try to sort them, to separate fact from fiction, but the lines are always moving, always just out of reach. The more you try to pin reality down, the more it slips through your fingers. Some call this depersonalization or derealization, or the long echo of lucid dreaming. But there's something uniquely haunting about perpetual unreality. It's not just that you feel detached, it's that you can't trust the evidence of your own senses. You watch yourself laughing, crying, working, loving, and you wonder, who is living this life? Is it really you, or just a character in someone else's narrative? You might even start to test reality in small ways, pinching yourself, rereading the same text, replaying a sound, searching for inconsistencies in the script of your day. But even these rituals fail to comfort you. If the world is a stage, then maybe the test is part of the performance too. And yet, there is a strange liberation in this doubt. When nothing can be trusted completely, every moment becomes a question, an invitation to look deeper, to find meaning where before there was only routine. Maybe this unreality is not a curse, but a call. To see the world with new eyes, to question the stories you tell yourself, to recognize that certainty is always an illusion. Maybe the world was always this strange, this layered, this fragile, and only now do you see it for what it is. Still, the price is real. There is an ache that comes with losing faith in your own perceptions, a loneliness that settles in the space where certainty used to live. You may find yourself longing for the days when reality was simple, unambiguous, safe. But once the veil is lifted, it rarely falls again. You learn to move through the world like a detective in your own life, collecting evidence, weighing possibilities, always a little unsure. You might envy those who walk through life without ever questioning what's real and what isn't. But you also know the truth, that reality is never as simple as it seems, that every moment is both real and unreal, staged and spontaneous, dreamt and lived. So you carry on, holding your doubts close, letting the questions sharpen your vision. You make peace with uncertainty, learning to trust not the world itself, but your own resilience, your ability to keep moving even when the ground shifts beneath your feet. The perpetual unreality syndrome does not have to be a prison. It can be the beginning of something deeper, a journey into the heart of what it means to be conscious, to be awake, to be endlessly searching for the truth, even when you know you'll never find it. The impossible object, residue. You dream of things that cannot be. A staircase folding into itself, a sphere that casts two shadows, a door that opens into sunlight but closes on midnight. In sleep, these objects seem natural, woven into the logic of the dream. You touch them, turn them over in your hands, convinced of their realness. Their impossibility doesn't matter. The mind accepts what it's given. But morning comes, and the spell should break. Should, but doesn't. Because long after you wake, the residue of the impossible lingers. You keep glimpsing those forbidden objects, just beyond the edge of vision, in the periphery of the world, as if the dream refuses to let go. You try to dismiss it. After all, reality is supposed to be trustworthy, ruled by physics, bound by sense, the laws of shape and light and weight. You're sure you're awake, yet the memory haunts you. A book on your shelf seems to tilt in a way that shouldn't be possible. You see a reflection in a window, but the angles don't add up. You pass a sculpture in the park, and for a split second, it twists in on itself, impossible and beautiful, before snapping back to reality. You laugh it off, but something in you knows that you've seen this before. It was in the dream, and now you can't tell which world is leaking into which. This is the impossible object residue, the eerie phenomenon where dream logic refuses to stay contained. The mind, once open to the idea of the impossible, keeps searching for it, keeps expecting the world to bend. It's not just memory. It's a subtle pressure, as if the dream is trying to prove itself, insisting it wasn't fiction after all. There are stories everywhere, if you listen. A boy dreams of a puzzle box that unfolds infinitely, layer after layer with no end. Weeks later, he finds himself fidgeting with a cheap plastic toy, only to feel a vertigo as he expects it to unfold again and again. A woman dreams of a lamp that casts blue shadows in one direction and red in another. For days, she's haunted by the sensation that the shadows in her house aren't falling quite right. She stands in the doorway, watching the angles, feeling the tension between what is and what could be. Some dismiss these moments as tricks of the eye, leftovers from the brain's nightly cleanup. But what if they're more? What if dreams are experiments, testing the edges of possibility? Maybe the mind, having tasted the impossible, is forever changed. The next time you see an Escher staircase, a Penrose triangle, an optical illusion that loops back on itself, you feel a shock of recognition. You've seen this geometry before, in places where logic folds and the laws of physics blink. Now, waking life seems less certain. You question your perceptions, wondering where the dream ended, if it ended at all. Science shrugs and says this is just imagination, pareidolia, the mind's tendency to find meaning in chaos. Maybe. But it doesn't explain the emotion, the thrill, the fear, the sense of discovery, the impossible object. Residue isn't just about seeing what shouldn't be seen. It's about feeling a crack in the foundation of certainty. It's the sense that reality is thinner than you thought, more susceptible to intrusion. The dream leaves a fingerprint, and now you're always looking for it. Sometimes it goes further. You try to recreate the object, sketch it, build it, describe it to a friend. But something always fails in translation. The thing you saw in your dream refuses to exist in daylight. Your hands can't make it, your words can't contain it. The attempt leaves you restless, unsatisfied, as if you've lost something essential. Yet the residue remains, shaping your curiosity, making you wonder how much of what you see is truly there, and how much is haunted by what could be. There's a strange hope hidden in this haunting. If the mind can invent objects that defy the world's rules, maybe the world itself is less rigid than we think. Maybe the boundaries are not as hard as they seem. The impossible object. Residue is a reminder. Your senses are not perfect, your reality not absolute. Every dream pushes against the edges, looking for cracks, for loopholes. Sometimes it finds them. Sometimes it leaves a mark. So you go about your day, keeping an eye on corners, watching the way light bends, never quite trusting the solidness of things. And every so often, you catch a glimpse, a shape that can't exist, a shadow that falls the wrong way, a door that shouldn't be there. For a moment, the world is bigger, stranger, more possible. The dream insists on its truth, and you realize reality is just a consensus, a habit. The impossible objects never left. They're still waiting in the margins, reminding you that the world is never quite as fixed as you were taught to believe. The emotional time capsule. You drift into sleep, thinking you are leaving the day behind, but some part of you is already digging. Somewhere in the dark, beneath the chatter of thought and the shifting scenes of dreams, a hidden vault begins to stir. All the feelings you thought were lost, grief that once hollowed you out, desire that burned through your veins, shame that sent you hiding from your own reflection, have not disappeared. They have only been buried, carefully sealed in the deep chambers of your mind, waiting for the right moment to be unearthed. This is the emotional time capsule, a place in your dreaming self where the past is never truly gone. In waking life, you build your defenses. You tell yourself you've moved on. You're stronger. The pain is distant now. But dreams are archaeologists of the soul. They brush away the dust, pry open the old lock, and bring the memories back to life with an intensity you can't control. Suddenly you are in the middle of it again, feeling everything as if no time has passed at all. You wake from a dream with tears on your face, heart pounding, throat tight with longing or regret. Maybe you dreamt of a person you haven't seen in years, a parent who is gone, a lover who left, a friend whose voice has faded to a whisper in your memory. In the dream, they are as vivid as the day you last saw them. You can feel their warmth, their laughter, the weight of their gaze. You say things you never dared to say, or listen helplessly as they walk away once more. The ache in your chest is as fresh as the first day you lost them. Or maybe the time capsule opens onto old desire. You dream of someone you thought you had outgrown, someone you tried to forget. In the waking world, you keep your composure, act unbothered, convince yourself you've moved on. But in dreams, the longing is raw, unfiltered. You reach for them without hesitation. The electricity of their touch, the hunger in your bones, all return as if summoned by some ancient spell. You wake up flushed, unsettled, questioning whether you ever truly let them go. Sometimes, it's shame that bursts from the capsule, a moment from childhood, a mistake, a lie, a humiliation, returns with all its old sting. You relive the awkward silence, the burning in your cheeks, the desperate wish to disappear. It doesn't matter that you are older now, wiser, far removed from that moment. The emotion is undiminished, pure and sharp as broken glass. You wake with your hands clenched, heart racing, desperate to shake off the old ghost. But it lingers, a shadow on your day, proof that the past can never be fully buried. These time capsules do not open at random. Your dreams are cunning, choosing the moments when your guard is down, when you are ready, perhaps without knowing, to face what you have hidden. Sometimes, after months or years, a single detail in the real world triggers the release. A familiar scent, a song on the radio, the way sunlight falls across a room. That night, your dreams find the capsule, and suddenly you are transported, helpless, back into the feelings you thought were lost to time. You might wonder why the mind does this, why it stores away pain, longing, and shame instead of letting them fade. Perhaps it is survival. To live fully in the world, you cannot carry the weight of every heartbreak, every humiliation, every unfulfilled desire. You have to pack them away, seal them in memory so you can get through the day. But your dreams are not so practical. They want you to feel, to remember, to reconcile. The emotions locked away are not dead. They are only waiting for a safe passage home. And so, the cycle continues. You bury, you forget, you move on. But each night, your dreams circle the vault, checking the lock, testing the weight of the feelings inside. When the time is right, the capsule opens. Sometimes it is agony, a night spent in tears, a morning heavy with loss. Sometimes it is a gift, a final goodbye you never managed in waking life, a surge of joy for something you feared was lost forever. There is catharsis in these returns, a strange relief in the completeness of feeling, even if it hurts. The emotional time capsule does not discriminate. It stores the whole spectrum, old fears and lost hopes, pride and regret, bitterness and forgiveness. Sometimes, in dreams, you confront the people who hurt you, or who you hurt. You speak the truth you never found the courage to say. You beg for mercy, or grant it. You watch yourself change, or stay the same. You realize the feelings are not gone. They are simply preserved, awaiting your return. When you wake, the world feels different. The air is charged, your thoughts colored by the force of what you have just felt. Maybe you see your life with new clarity, the thread that runs through your past, the unfinished stories, the unresolved emotions. Or maybe you feel raw, exposed, desperate to push the feelings back underground. But you cannot unknow what you have unearthed. The time capsule is open, the contents now part of you once more. And perhaps that is the purpose. Dreams remind you that nothing is ever truly lost, that every love, every sorrow, every shame is waiting somewhere inside, shaped by time but untouched by it. Your waking self may forget, but your dreaming self never does. In this way, the emotional time capsule is both a burden and a blessing, a reminder that you are whole, that all your feelings belong, that the story of your life is richer than any single moment, any single day. So you sleep, and the vault opens. You wake, and you carry the contents with you. Sometimes for hours, sometimes for a lifetime. The past is never gone. It is only waiting for you, dreaming in the dark, ready to return with all its original force. The reality calibration lag. You open your eyes to morning light, but your mind remains underwater. The dream has ended, or so you think, yet its ripples churn inside you, warping the surface of waking thought. You lie still, blinking at the ceiling, but the world feels slippery, not quite aligned. You know you're awake, you know where you are, But there's a delay, a lag, before reality comes fully into focus. The logic of the dream clings to your skin like invisible residue, coloring everything you see. At first, you try to shake it off, go through your rituals, the shower, the coffee, the quiet scan of headlines on your phone. But even as you move through the morning, something is wrong. Your thoughts refuse to settle. You catch yourself expecting impossible things, waiting for someone to walk through a wall, searching your pockets for an object that never existed, glancing at the clock and not trusting the numbers you see. A part of you still believes in the physics of the dream, its rules, its dangers, its miracles. The boundaries of what's possible have not yet reasserted themselves. You step outside, bracing against the hum of waking life, but the world remains half-dreamed. People's faces seem too sharp, then too vague. The colors are a shade too intense, or not enough. You sense patterns that shouldn't be there. The neighbor's dog barks 3 times, exactly as in last night's story. The wind rustles the leaves in a rhythm that echoes a dream conversation you've already forgotten. The logic of sleep lingers, bending cause and effect, stretching time, warping expectation. Reality itself feels like a puzzle you are still solving, one that refuses to snap into place. You move through your day with a subtle, unshakable uncertainty. Every decision carries an aftertaste of last night's logic. In the dream, you could fly by thinking about freedom, so now the stairs seem strangely negotiable, as if you might slip upward with enough concentration. In the dream, you were hunted by a faceless figure, so now every sudden noise jolts you, your body flinching with remembered terror. In the dream, you reconciled with someone long lost, so now, hours later, their memory glows in your chest like a lantern, your anger softened, your regret exposed. The borders between then and now blur and bleed into each other. Conversations feel out of sync. Someone asks a simple question, and you pause a beat too long, lost in a search for context that doesn't exist here. You reply with fragments, unfinished thoughts, as if translating from a language only you remember. Sometimes you try to explain, "Sorry, I just woke up," or "I had a weird dream," but no one else is inside your lag. No one else sees the rules shifting beneath your feet. You feel alone, exiled from consensus reality, trapped in a private transition zone. You try to ground yourself. You touch the table, sip your coffee, press your fingers against your own wrist, hunting for the pulse of the real. But the calibration takes time. Your mind keeps referencing dream logic as a source of truth, making you second-guess your memories, your instincts, your very sense of identity. Did you really promise that friend to meet for lunch? Or was it only a conversation in your sleep? Did you actually leave your keys by the door, or was that from a dream a week ago? You find yourself cross-checking, triple-guessing, haunted by the possibility that any certainty might dissolve if you blink too hard. The lag is not just confusion, it's a kind of haunting. It's as if the dream world and waking world have swapped pieces, and your brain is scrambling to patch the seams. Science calls it sleep inertia, a cognitive hangover, a slow reboot of the system. But you know it's more than that. It's as if your mind keeps running background processes from another dimension, and every so often, those processes leak through, distorting your perception, rewriting your expectations. There are moments, even hours after waking, when you still believe in dream rules. You expect old friends to appear out of nowhere. You trust that doors will open to impossible places. You accept bizarre logic as fact. The cat is also your childhood friend. Your phone can taste food, and gravity is just a suggestion. Even as reason returns, your emotions lag behind, colored by stories that should have faded at dawn. Joy lingers from dreams of victory. Grief lingers from dreams of loss. Shame clings to you from an argument you never had. Love glows from an embrace you never truly received. Sometimes, the lag is terrifying. After a nightmare, you spend the day with your senses heightened, your anxiety humming. You're sure something is hunting you, that danger is close. The threat is gone, but the body hasn't caught up. You double-check locks, flinch at shadows, interpret every coincidence as a warning. The dream's logic keeps replaying, insisting that anything could happen, that nothing is safe, that reality is not to be trusted. Other times, the lag is wondrous. After a night spent flying, solving mysteries, dancing with lost friends, you wake up suffused with possibility. For a while, the world seems limitless. Problems feel lighter, creativity surges, hope burns brighter than usual. You carry an odd sense of magic through the day, as if reality itself is more malleable, more open to invention. You might even try to bend the world to your will, convinced, if only for a moment, that all it takes is the right thought, the right gesture, to shape fate itself. But always, eventually, the calibration completes. The dream logic recedes, replaced by the old familiar patterns. Physics reasserts itself. Faces return to their usual clarity. The calendar clicks forward, and you are yourself again, more or less. But the memory lingers. The lag was real. For a few hours you lived in the overlap, the liminal zone where dreams and daylight share custody of your mind. You start to wonder if everyone lives with this lag, if everyone quietly recalibrates after sleep, hiding their confusion behind morning routines and small talk. Maybe the world is full of people moving through the haze of last night's logic, second-guessing their own memories, holding their breath until reality locks into place. Maybe every day is a negotiation between worlds, an ongoing truce between what is and what could be. There is a lesson hidden in the lag, a truth about the fluidity of perception, the unreliability of certainty. You realize that reality is never absolute. It's a consensus, an agreement your brain must re-sign every morning. The rules you live by are not fixed. They are habits, patterns, calibrations. Sometimes those rules break, and for a little while, the world opens up, showing you its seams, its possibilities, its strangeness. You learn to be gentle with yourself, to respect the lag, to recognize that the mind is not a machine that resets instantly, but a living thing that needs time to adapt. You learn to forgive others their moments of confusion, their lingering dreams, their odd behaviors at breakfast. You realize that everyone, in their own way, is calibrating, trying to align the worlds they've traveled, trying to remember which reality they belong to. And maybe, in that space between dreaming and waking, you find a new kind of freedom. You see that your mind is bigger than the day, that your life is shaped by stories you only half remember. You begin to embrace the lag, to use it as a window into other possibilities. You let it remind you that the boundaries between worlds are thin, and that sometimes the truest things are those that take the longest to believe. The dream premonition illusion. It happens in the middle of an ordinary moment. You're crossing the street, sunlight glinting off car windows, or you're reaching for a coffee cup, laughter echoing somewhere in the background. Suddenly, time stutters, your breath catches, the air feels thick. A wave of certainty washes over you. This has happened before. You know exactly what comes next. The sound of a horn, the glint of a blue shirt, the words someone is about to say. For an instant, you're weightless, suspended between worlds. You don't just recognize the moment, you're certain you dreamed it. The experience is electric, uncanny, as if you've glimpsed a secret script running just beneath the surface of reality. This is the dream premonition illusion, a paradox where déjà vu isn't just the echo of a memory, but the conviction that you have already dreamed this scene, that your mind predicted it in advance. The moment stretches, luminous and strange, as you try to remember. Did I see this in a dream? Did my unconscious mind leave me a warning, a clue, a promise? Or is my mind inventing the memory now, retrofitting the past to match the present, desperate to make sense of the impossible? You turn the memory over in your mind, searching for evidence. You're sure you can recall the dream, maybe not all the details, but enough to be convinced. The pattern of sunlight on the floor, the cadence of a stranger's voice, the precise way the world smells in this instant. It all feels scripted, as if you've slipped into a story you've already read. But as the feeling fades, you begin to doubt. Was the dream ever real? Or did your brain invent it on the spot, stitching together fragments and shadows to give you the illusion of foresight? Psychologists will tell you it's a glitch, a moment when your brain's pattern recognition machinery misfires, creating the sensation of repetition where none exists. But for those who experience it, the dream premonition illusion is more than a cognitive error. It's a brush with fate, a dance with destiny. You begin to wonder, are dreams a window into the future, or is the future just a canvas your mind paints to feel less afraid of chaos? Sometimes the illusion is gentle, a fleeting sense of familiarity that you shrug off as coincidence. Other times, it's overwhelming, leaving you shaken, dizzy, grasping for explanations. You might recall the feeling of standing in a hallway, heart pounding, knowing exactly who will appear around the corner because you've already seen it in your sleep. Or you might remember waking from a dream, the details vivid, only for them to dissolve as the day unfolds, until, hours or days later, you find yourself living the dream scene in real time, the lines between memory and prophecy hopelessly blurred. You begin to notice patterns, recurring images, symbols, moments that repeat across dream and waking life. The sense of control is seductive. If you can dream the future, maybe you are not entirely at the mercy of fate. Maybe there is order, meaning, intention beneath the chaos of living. But the more you search for proof, the more slippery the truth becomes. Your mind is a master of narrative, forever weaving stories that comfort, protect, deceive. Was it really a premonition? Or did you shape the memory to fit the present, rewriting the past in real time to soothe your own anxiety? You might keep a dream journal, desperate to capture the moments that feel prophetic. You flip back through old pages, searching for matches, connections, validations. Sometimes you find them. A fragment of a dream that matches a detail in your day. A half-remembered phrase, a pattern, a place. But the evidence is always ambiguous, always incomplete. For every dream that comes true, there are 100 that don't. The illusion persists, not because it's real, but because your mind longs for order, for reassurance that you are not just adrift in a random universe. The dream premonition illusion can be comforting or terrifying. If you believe in it, every moment glows with meaning, every coincidence hints at destiny. But if you question it, you can feel unmoored, forced to admit that your memories are porous, your sense of time unreliable, yourself as much fiction as fact. In the end, you are left with the tension between doubt and belief, the thrill of mystery, the ache of uncertainty. Maybe that's the true power of the illusion, not as evidence of psychic ability, but as a mirror of your deepest need to belong, to understand, to predict. It is a glitch, yes, but also a gift, a fleeting reminder that your mind is always working to protect you from the terror of not knowing what comes next. And maybe, just maybe, in that moment of déjà vu, you glimpse not the future, but the vast creative power of the brain, forever blurring the line between what is, what was, and what might be. The recurring identity fragment. You drift through sleep, lost in another world, when suddenly you meet someone strangely familiar. Their face might shift and blur, their voice bending between accents, yet something about them feels uncomfortably close, like staring into a warped mirror, recognizing a spark behind their eyes that matches your own. The conversation slips into the uncanny. "I am you," the dream character says, not with the vague comfort of metaphor, but with the raw certainty of someone stating a fact. You try to laugh it off, but their gaze is unwavering, almost accusing. The dream fades, morning arrives, but the echo of that claim stays lodged in your mind like a splinter. And you wonder, is it possible that some part of you is alive and conscious in that other world, continuing its story when you return to this one? The suspicion lingers all day, a low, persistent static beneath your thoughts. You remember the details with unusual sharpness, how they moved, the way they responded. Their mannerisms uncannily synchronized with habits you barely notice in yourself. Maybe they finished your sentences, anticipated your fears, exposed desires you never dared to name aloud. Or perhaps they challenged you, questioned choices you thought you'd buried. It's not just that you dreamt of someone similar to yourself. It's the certainty that this character was you, awake, aware, somehow waiting for your return. From that day forward, you begin to notice things. Fragments of the dream world bleed into your waking hours. You catch yourself using a phrase they once spoke. You feel a craving for foods you never liked before, or a pull toward music that doesn't fit your taste. At times, you sense their emotions rising within you, sudden anger, laughter, shame, or courage, as if your inner weather is being influenced by a mind living elsewhere. When you look in the mirror, you search for subtle changes, evidence that you've brought back a piece of their reality. It's as if the border between your waking life and your dream life has thinned, allowing echoes of the other self to slip through. You start to question, who am I really? Am I just the sum of my memories, my habits, my choices? Or is there a deeper self, one that lives on when I sleep, piloting another body, living a life I only glimpse in fragments? You think back to childhood, to those early dreams where you could fly, where you spoke languages you never learned, where you knew things you could never explain. Were those simply the wild inventions of an imaginative mind, or were they the lived experiences of another you, one who takes over when your eyes close, one who remembers when you forget? Psychology offers neat explanations. Dream characters are projections of your subconscious, they say, parts of yourself brought to life by the sleeping brain, acting out your fears and wishes in the theater of night. But the feeling goes deeper than theory. When a dream self stares back at you with knowing eyes, when they claim your name, your secrets, your pain, the sensation is hard to dismiss. It's as if you've met a twin raised in a different world, with all your potential unspent, your regrets erased, your stories diverging at every choice you never made. You sense that when you wake up, they remain, living, deciding, maybe even dreaming of you in return. This is the recurring identity fragment, the haunting suspicion that you are not whole, that your consciousness is divided, flickering between worlds with every blink of sleep. You start to see the world with a doubled vision. Every time you forget a detail or lose track of time, you wonder, where did I go? Was I living as that other self, making choices I can only half remember? And when you fall asleep again, there's a new anticipation, an eagerness tinged with dread. Will I meet them tonight? Will I pick up their story, slip back into their skin? Or will I just watch, a silent observer, as they take my place? Some days you feel empowered, expanded by the idea that you are larger than a single story, that parts of you live on in other worlds, making choices you'll never understand. Other days, the thought is unsettling, even terrifying. Are you in control, or are you the puppet of a self who wakes when you sleep? If you and your dream self both think you're real, which one of you is telling the truth? Or are you both just stories, written by a consciousness too vast to fit inside a single mind? As this suspicion deepens, you find yourself searching for evidence. You study your dreams, keeping notebooks by your bed, piecing together the fragments, looking for patterns, for messages. You become a detective in your own life, tracing the overlap between worlds. Sometimes you wake up with answers, but more often you find only more questions. The sense that reality is more layered, more mysterious than you ever imagined. And so you carry the recurring identity fragment with you, a secret knowledge that yourself is never whole, always divided, always echoing between worlds. You learn to move between realities, honoring both the waking life and the dream life, never fully at home in either. But in that in-between space, you find a strange kind of freedom, the knowledge that you are more than a single story, that somewhere, even now, another part of you is living, loving, fighting, and dreaming, waiting for the moment when your two worlds might meet again. The unresolved narrative loop. You wake, unsettled, with the sense that something was left unfinished, a conversation left hanging in the air, a door never opened, a choice never made. In your dream, the story felt urgent, the stakes real, the plot twisting just out of reach. You chased answers through endless corridors, watched the clock tick down to nothing, reached for a hand that slipped away just as you grasped it. But then the alarm cut through, and you were flung into the daylight, the story still dangling, unresolved. At first you try to shake it off, chalking it up to the chaos of sleep, but the fragments linger. The mind hates an unfinished tale. This is the unresolved narrative loop, a quiet but relentless compulsion to revisit, rewrite, and finally finish the dreams that never reach their end. Your mind becomes a stage, replaying the same scenario in quiet moments, like a background process you can't shut down. You think you're daydreaming, but really, you're caught in a loop, turning the dream over and over until it becomes something else. Soon, the lines between dream and memory begin to blur. The unfinished story leaks into your waking life. You might catch yourself replaying a scenario as you brush your teeth, stuck in the rhythm of what could have been. Maybe it's an argument you never resolved. Each time you speak a little differently, trying to land the perfect phrase. Or maybe it's a mystery your dream self almost solved, a door with a lock you never managed to open, a secret that always slipped away just before you woke. Now, in the real world, you scan faces for clues, read emails twice for hidden meaning, always feeling the itch of something left undone. It doesn't matter that the dream wasn't real. The emotional charge is real enough. Psychologists say the brain is wired for narrative, always searching for patterns, closure, meaning. A story with no ending is a splinter in the mind, so you replay the dream, but this time you take a different path, say a different word. Try to rescue what was lost or claim what was denied. The loop grows tighter each time, blending the dream's fragments into your waking memory. There's the man who dreams, night after night, of missing a train. Each morning he wakes in a cold sweat, heart racing with the panic of being left behind. For weeks, he obsesses over trains, checks the timetables, leaves for work early, feels a shudder of relief each time he boards on time. But the fear doesn't fade, because it isn't about the train. It's about the unresolved story. His mind keeps rewriting the script, searching for the version where he finally makes it. Or the woman who dreams of searching for her lost childhood pet. She wakes with a sense of longing and guilt, replaying the search as she walks her dog, scanning crowds for a familiar shape. She dreams up new endings, some happy, some tragic, until she's no longer sure which memories are real and which began in sleep. The narrative loop has tangled itself into her life, replaying and rewriting itself until even the truth feels slippery. The unresolved narrative loop isn't always painful. Sometimes it's a wellspring of creativity. Writers and artists know this well. The way unfinished dreams can spark obsessions, lead to stories, songs, inventions. The brain's hunger for closure drives you to imagine, to build, to solve. But often, the loop is subtle torture, a compulsion to complete the incomplete, to close the circle, to give yourself the ending the dream denied. Science tries to explain it. Dreams often end abruptly, the mind left with unprocessed emotions, half-formed stories, questions with no answers. The brain, restless, takes up the unfinished thread, looping it through your thoughts until you claim closure or surrender. Sometimes, the loop never ends. The same dream returns night after night, shifting only slightly, always withholding the final scene. Over time, the loop weaves itself into your memories so that you begin to recall dream events as if they were real. You replay that argument and remember details that never happened. You recall searching for something in the dark, even though it was only ever a dream. The boundaries blur until the unfinished narrative is stitched into the fabric of your life. You become a patchwork of stories, some true, some dreamed, all unresolved. But maybe this too is part of being human. We are creatures of unfinished stories, always searching for meaning, closure, resolution. The unresolved narrative loop is not just a flaw, it's a drive. It keeps us curious, searching, moving forward, longing for the day when every door opens, every story finds its end, and every dream, finally, lets us rest. The phantom injury syndrome. You wake suddenly, the memory of pain sharp and raw in your bones. Maybe it's your shoulder, still aching as if you were struck. Maybe it's your ankle, throbbing with the residue of a fall you can almost remember. Sometimes, there's the faintest trace of a bruise, a blush of color that wasn't there the night before, or a scratch, a welt, a strange indentation on your skin. You search for reasons. Did you sleep wrong? Did you hit something in the dark? The rational mind scrambles for answers, but deep down, you sense something stranger at work, a ghost of agony from a world that shouldn't exist. This is the phantom injury syndrome, the unnerving experience of waking with real sensations. Sometimes pain, sometimes marks, sometimes a deep, inexplicable fatigue, when nothing in the waking world can account for them. Your body feels like a battlefield after a war fought behind your eyelids, scars and wounds lingering from stories that have no place in daylight. It's as if your body has become the final canvas for dreams too vivid to fade, carrying the trauma of a world no one else can see. The night before, you dreamed of running, bare feet pounding across endless fields, chased by shadows you could never quite escape. In the dream, you stumbled, fell, felt the crack of bone, the tear of flesh. You woke gasping, clutching your leg, pain flaring sharp and bright. Hours later, you limp through your morning, the sensation still there, a ghostly echo, impossible to explain. Or maybe, in the dream, you fought for your life. Claws, teeth, fire, the taste of blood in your mouth. You wake with your hands clenched, muscles trembling, heart pounding. You find a crescent-shaped bruise on your arm or a rawness in your throat, as if the violence followed you out of sleep. Doctors might tell you it's nothing, just muscle tension, just the body shifting in the night, just the mind playing tricks. But you know what you felt. You remember the pain, the terror, the desperate need to survive. You remember the moment you were hurt, the weight of the blow, the heat of the wound. The mind tries to dismiss it, to rationalize, but the body refuses. It holds the memory as if it were real, because to you, in that moment, it was. Sometimes the injury is subtler, a stiffness in the neck, a soreness in the chest, a headache that pulses with the rhythm of some forgotten nightmare. You go about your day haunted by sensations you cannot name. You wonder, can the mind invent pain so real the body obeys? Can a world that only exists in dreams leave a mark that lasts all morning, all day, sometimes longer? The question gnaws at you, unsettling and irresistible. Where does the dream end and the body begin? Are you the sum of your waking experiences, or does something deeper, stranger, move beneath the surface? You start to notice patterns. The phantom injury doesn't come every night, but when it does, it always follows the same logic. The pain matches the dream, the bruise appears where you were struck, the sensation lingers long after the memory fades. Sometimes you try to dismiss it, to laugh it off. But it happens again. You begin to anticipate it, a sense of dread curling in your stomach before you sleep. You wonder if you're being hunted by something inside yourself, a shadow self that lives in the places only dreams can reach. There are stories, old, half-whispered, of people waking with marks they cannot explain, scratches down the back, as if clawed by invisible hands, burns that match no accident, but echo a nightmare's fire, aching ribs, twisted ankles, mysterious welts and wounds. Some say it's stress, the mind punishing the body for what the soul cannot express. Others believe in something darker, visitations, hauntings, curses from another world, but science is mostly silent, unable to explain the bridge between a wound in the mind and a bruise on the skin. Yet you know the truth, the way only someone who has lived it can. The dream world is not separate, not sealed off by the simple act of waking. It bleeds into reality, leaving fingerprints on your body, reminders that every night you travel somewhere else, somewhere dangerous, somewhere wild, somewhere that leaves you changed. The pain is proof, the mark is proof, the haunting fatigue is proof. You are not just a witness to your dreams. You are a participant, a victim, a survivor of worlds that vanish with the morning light. Sometimes, in rare moments of clarity, you wonder what your body is really trying to tell you. Are these phantom injuries messages from the mind, a warning, a memory, a lesson you refuse to learn while awake? Or are they simply the cost of crossing too far, too deep into the unknown? You begin to keep track, mapping the bruises and aches like a cartographer charting an invisible landscape. Each mark tells a story. The night you fell, the night you fought, the night you ran for your life and woke up gasping in the dark. You learn to treat your body with new respect, a vessel that carries not just your waking life, but the silent trauma of every dream you survive. You move through the day wary, uncertain, always wondering what scars you will wake with next. But in this fear, there is a strange power, a sense that you are more than your memories, more than your conscious mind. You are a traveler between worlds, and each journey leaves a mark. And so, you sleep again night after night, bracing for the pain, the sensation, the mystery. You wake with the evidence written on your skin, in your bones, in the shuddering echo of fear and wonder. The world you dream may not exist, but the wounds it leaves are real. You carry them forward, living proof that the boundaries between reality and nightmare are far more fragile, far more haunted than anyone dares to admit. The reverse time sequence. There's a kind of dream that breaks the rules you never knew you were following. You find yourself in the middle of a story, but the story is running backwards. The laws of cause and effect, the orderliness that holds waking life together, collapse in an instant. In this dream, a glass unshatters on the floor. Water leaps back into the cup. Tears retreat into your eyes, and goodbyes are spoken before the meeting ever begins. You're living the sequence in reverse, watching the world rewind itself, as if you've become unstuck in time. At first, it feels absurd. You notice that you're running, but only after you've arrived. You're apologizing before the argument begins. You laugh at a joke, then hear the punchline. The logic of the dream is inside out. You try to orient yourself, but every time you reach for an anchor, it slips away. Moments unspool in a logic that can only be called alien. Effects give birth to causes. Answers precede questions. The end is always chasing the beginning. And yet, as you move through this backwards landscape, something strange happens. Even in the middle of the confusion, a part of you insists that it all makes sense. You accept the impossibility. You follow the dream's current, adapting to its tempo. You walk into rooms you remember leaving, hug people before you feel the longing, taste the fruit before you see the tree. In the dream, this reversal is not only tolerable, it's inevitable. You are fluent in a language where time is a spiral, not a line. Then you wake up. The first light filters through your window, and you sit up, heart pounding, mind full of fragments. You remember the dream, at least you think you do, but your memory begins to smooth the story, repairing the oddness, weaving the events into a forward-flowing narrative. You recall the broken glass, then the spill, then the clumsy hand. You remember the argument, then the apology, then the uneasy silence. Your brain rearranges the sequence, slotting causes before effects, restoring order to the chaos. The dream that played in reverse is reconstructed almost automatically into something that resembles waking reality. You feel a peculiar vertigo, a sense that you've glimpsed another dimension but can no longer remember its shape. The details are there, the faces, the places, the emotions, but the sequence is gone, overwritten by the mind's insistence that time flows one way. It's as if you've watched a film in rewind, only to find the script in your hand, reading from beginning to end. The paradox is dizzying. You know, somewhere deep down, that the order was reversed. Yet, your memory refuses to allow it. You walk through the day with an odd tension in your chest. You catch yourself trying to remember the original sequence, certain that if you just focus hard enough, you'll recover the truth. But it slips away, elusive as smoke. Your mind is relentless in its editing, always smoothing the wrinkles, making sense where there was only strangeness. You talk to a friend about your dream, trying to describe the backwards logic, but the more you speak, the more you reconstruct the events forward. The story bends to fit the rules of the waking world. Even as you try to resist, the details reorganize themselves, causes nestling neatly before effects, as if your memory is quietly, kindly lying to you for the sake of sanity. Science has a name for this: confabulation, the mind's urge to fill gaps, to restore the expected flow of time. In dreams, the architecture of memory is fluid. REM sleep rewires the brain's usual pathways. The hippocampus loosens its grip, letting narratives drift, letting scenes snap together in impossible combinations. The reversal of time is just one more possibility among infinite others. But waking consciousness is intolerant of ambiguity. The brain is built for stories, and stories need direction. So you become the unwitting editor of your own experience, rewriting dreams to fit the narrow groove of before and after. But the feeling lingers. You sense, in flashes, how fragile your trust in time really is. You remember the uncanny ease with which your dreaming self accepted the reversal, the sense of inevitability, the fluency with which you adapted to the logic of a world unmoored from chronology. You wonder how much of waking life is a similar reconstruction. How many of your memories are quietly reordered? How many of your certainties are inventions? How much of your story is just a best guess imposed on the mystery of experience? The reverse time sequence is more than a quirk of sleep. It's a glimpse behind the curtain. It reveals how much you depend on the illusion of sequence, the security of cause and effect. It shows you how easily your mind can invert the order, how fiercely it will resist acknowledging the truth. There is comfort in the lie, a sense of safety in the narrative. But once you have glimpsed the reversal, you know that time is not as solid as it seems. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you retain a sliver of the dream's original strangeness. You walk into a room and feel you've already left. You have a conversation and know the outcome before the words are spoken. You sense the future echoing into the past, a faint dissonance in the music of memory. You start to question your assumptions. Did I really remember that moment as it happened? Or have I already edited it, arranged it, rehearsed it, until it flows the way I need it to? There is a haunting beauty in this realization. The backwards dream is a reminder that your perception of time is a fragile construction, a river you can swim upstream, if only for a moment, before the current sweeps you back. It's a whisper that reality is not as rigid as you believe, that your mind is capable of building, unbuilding, and rebuilding the world with every blink. The next time you wake from a dream that made no sense, resist the urge to smooth its edges. Sit with the reversal, the out of sequence, the impossible logic. Let yourself remember what it felt like to live in a world where the end preceded the beginning, where every effect gave rise to its own cause. There is wisdom there, in the disorder, a kind of freedom in the refusal to force everything into a straight line. The reversed time sequence reminds you that your mind is not just a recorder, but an architect, that every memory is a reconstruction, that the story of your life and your dreams is always being edited, always being remade, always caught between what happened and what makes sense. And somewhere in that space, in the dissonance, in the paradox, you find the possibility that time and truth are both more mysterious and more fragile than you ever dared to imagine. The dream origin belief. There are dreams so powerful that when you wake, they have already rewritten the rules of your reality. It starts quietly, with a sensation or a thought that sinks in while you're sleeping. Maybe you dream of a betrayal, a reunion, a revelation, a message whispered in the private language only your sleeping mind understands. But when morning comes, the echo of that dream isn't just a memory. It's a conviction, a certainty, a core belief that feels as real and unshakable as gravity itself. You open your eyes, and the world looks familiar, but something inside you has shifted forever. This is the dream origin belief, a conviction seated in sleep so deeply that waking logic cannot touch it. You may remember the story behind it, or you may only feel its weight, a silent certainty that something is true, even if you can't explain why. Maybe you dream of losing a loved one. The grief is immense, all-consuming, and when you wake, you carry a sense of absence you can't shake, even as you see them alive and well. The loss isn't real, but the sorrow is. It sits in your chest, a shadow with no source, a truth born of sleep that no daylight can erase. Or perhaps you dream of triumph. You solve a problem, achieve a goal, discover some hidden talent or insight. The confidence from that dream spills over into your day. You move with purpose, conviction, an inner certainty that you are capable, worthy, destined. When friends ask what's changed, you can't point to a reason. You just know. The dream gave you something reality never did. A new axis to spin on, a new belief to carry forward. No matter how much logic you apply, you cannot undo it. Sometimes, the dream origin belief is irrational, even absurd. You might wake with a fear you never had before, a dread of elevators or birds or a certain color. You avoid these things with the same urgency you would if danger were real, though you can't remember why. You try to reason with yourself. You know it's just a dream, just a fleeting illusion. But the belief persists, unyielding, immune to argument. Somewhere in your subconscious, a new law has been written, and your waking self has no choice but to obey. There are stories of people who change their lives overnight because of a single dream. A person who quits their job after dreaming of freedom. Someone who ends a friendship after a dream exposes imagined betrayal. Another who falls in love with a stranger glimpsed only in sleep, convinced that their destinies are intertwined. These decisions may seem irrational, even reckless, but to the dreamer, the conviction is absolute. The dream didn't just suggest a truth, it installed it, like new software running beneath the surface of consciousness. Scientists might call this a quirk of memory consolidation, a side effect of how the brain processes emotions and meaning while we sleep. But no amount of science can capture the lived intensity of these beliefs, the sense of having been given a message from somewhere deeper than thought. It is as if the dream bypasses the ordinary filters of skepticism, planting its seed in the soil of the soul, where reason can never reach. You may try to talk yourself out of it. You remind yourself that dreams are not reality, that your fears and hopes and certainties are just chemical signals, random firings in the night. But the conviction doesn't care. It seeps into your actions, your choices, your sense of who you are. Over time, you might even forget the dream that started it all, but the belief remains, woven into your personality like a scar or a tattoo. People ask, "Why do you feel this way?" And you have no answer, only the quiet, unshakable knowledge that this is true. Sometimes these dream-born beliefs bring healing, a new resolve, a release from old pain, a sudden clarity about what you want or who you love. Other times they bring confusion, anxiety, or an inexplicable sense of loss. You might feel like a stranger to yourself, changed by a story you cannot fully remember, but you learn to live with it, to respect the mysteries of your own mind, to accept that some truths are born in darkness and never fully explained by the light. In the end, the dream origin belief is a reminder of how porous the boundary is between worlds, how sleep can reach across the gap and rewrite the map of your waking life. We like to believe that logic rules, that reason is king, but deep down we know the most powerful truths are sometimes the ones we inherit from the world behind our eyelids. And so, you carry the conviction forward through all your days, unable to say where it came from, only that it's yours, and that no force of reason will ever shake it free. The waking dream contamination. You're walking through your day, moving from task to task, lost in the predictable rhythm of life, when something small shifts, a flicker at the edge of your vision, a sound that bends and stretches in your ear, the familiar surface of a wall suddenly rippling as if it's made of water. For a moment, everything seems strange, almost hallucinatory. You blink, shake your head, try to refocus. But the feeling lingers. The texture of your surroundings is off. Reality is no longer obeying its own rules, and you are gripped by the uneasy suspicion that you might be dreaming without realizing it. This is the waking dream contamination, a peculiar disturbance where reality itself becomes unstable, dissolving the line between waking life and the world of dreams. It can happen anywhere, at home, on the street, in the middle of a conversation. Suddenly, your senses become unreliable narrators. The words of the person across from you echo, stretching unnaturally, looping in your mind. The ticking of a clock grows louder, then softer, as if someone is turning the volume up and down just to see what you'll do. Light refracts strangely through glass, painting rainbows that pulse and shimmer, making you wonder if you're seeing the world as it really is or as your mind wants it to be. It feels as if the fabric of your experience has been tampered with, as if someone has swapped your reality for a slightly different version, close enough to pass, but warped around the edges. You might start to question yourself. Did you sleep poorly? Did you actually wake up? Or are you still trapped in the dream, merely dreaming of being awake? Every object, every texture, every sound becomes suspect. The roughness of the table under your fingertips, the softness of your own skin, the way your footsteps echo in the hallway. Each sensation is colored by doubt. You try to anchor yourself with familiar routines, but even these rituals begin to unravel. The taste of coffee, once comforting, now feels foreign. The face in the mirror seems less like you and more like an actor wearing your skin. A moment later, the world snaps back to normal, and you wonder if you imagined it all. It's not just your senses that betray you. Memory blurs, time slips. You find yourself pausing in the middle of a sentence, suddenly uncertain of what you were about to say, as if your mind is skipping frames like a corrupted video. You step into a room and forget why you came, retracing your steps with a growing sense of unreality. Sometimes, a wave of déjà vu washes over you, an overwhelming certainty that you've done this before, but with the nagging suspicion that the previous time happened in a dream, not real life. You start to fear that the border between worlds has thinned, and that you could fall through at any moment, swept away by the current of some unseen dream logic. This contamination isn't always frightening. Sometimes it's strangely beautiful, as if the world has become charged with possibility. Colors seem brighter, sounds richer, textures more alive. You feel as if you're seeing everything for the first time, as if your senses have been sharpened by the strange energy of the in-between. But underneath the wonder, there's always a current of unease, a sense that you are trespassing in a place where you do not belong, that you might wake up at any moment and discover this life was only a dream after all. You might confide in someone, a friend, a therapist, only to watch their face tighten with concern. They suggest stress, lack of sleep, a wandering mind. You nod, agreeing, but deep inside you know it's something stranger. You've become a permanent resident of the borderlands, living half in the waking world, and half in the shimmering, unreliable dreamscape that creeps in at the edges. The contamination isn't just a glitch. It's a message from the unconscious, a reminder that reality is never as stable as it seems. Science calls this phenomenon dissociation, or micro-dreaming, or hypnagogic intrusion. But labels do little to capture the experience, the surreal conviction that you might be drifting between worlds at any given moment. You learn to cope, to move carefully, to test reality with small rituals. Reading text twice, checking the time, tracing patterns on your skin. You seek comfort in repetition, hoping to find a crack in the illusion, a reassurance that you are truly awake. But there is no permanent cure, no final waking. You learn to live with the uncertainty, to find meaning in the flux. Maybe the waking dream contamination is a gift, a doorway to deeper awareness, a reminder that reality is always more flexible, more mysterious than you believe. Or maybe it's just another riddle, the mind's way of keeping you humble, never fully certain, never fully awake.